So we originally were gonna land Reckless, but obviously Re and Ritual, that's just dumb. They're contested land.
What is up, everybody? My name is Levin2K, and we are in the lobby with one of my personal favorite players, Alex. Welcome, Alex. How you doing, bro?
I'm good, man. How are you, bro?
I am very, very excited to be talking with you. We have to get the big elephant out of the room. You've moved to NA, bro.
I have.
Talk to me about that decision and how that's been for you so far.
So I've wanted to do this for like quite a while now. I need to do good at LAN. I've done bad every LAN. So I decided this year, we qualified for the LAN in the first season. So now that we qualified LAN, we've got nothing to lose. So we decided play a season in NA, learn a lot, or I've already learned a lot, and just to gain some more respect going into LAN. So hopefully we're not contested at the LAN.
I'm glad you mentioned being contested, at LAN and being contested in general, because obviously you've qualified for globals already. So there's no pressure to qualify here on NA. But how are you finding it in terms of like the NA players almost giving you that respect?
It's pretty different to OC, because obviously in OC we have a lot more respect than in NA. But originally we're gonna land Reckless, but obviously Re and Ritual, that's just dumb. They're contested land, cold land as well. So we decided, restored. It's mid-map, great like mobility with the rings. So we decided, we'll land there. And honestly, no disrespect, I feel like I'm quite happy Conic Cease. I think me and Word are coping well, and I definitely think in Grands, hopefully we call Grands. But if we do, we can beat them off spawn.
We'll see how that goes off spawn for you guys. Taking you back now to obviously being in the NA this season. Talk to me in terms of actually just like the move, right? Obviously you always focus about in-game, where you're landing, this, that, and the other. But like, who have you been like hanging out with? Who you been learning the most from so far while in NA?
I would say Muzz has been really helpful. He's from OC as well, so he kind of like knows what it's like to come to NA. I would say also like Ritual. I think Ritual didn't want us to con him, so he was kind of friendly to him, but like, I don't know. Yeah. And then Ages, Yapko as well has been pretty cool. Quanti, just like those boys.
100%. I want to know then, you guys obviously are newer to the region. There's been a lot of learning to be done, but like, what do you think makes you and Worthy stand out?
When we first came, we played really scared, so we didn't really qualify like for the duo cash cup at the start. But then once we kind of gained confidence and we realized like, we're actually good at fighting, I feel like we got so much better. And so I think like if we can find a good mix between playing endgame and fighting, we can have a really good chance to qualify.
Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys do in semi-finals and hopefully then in grand finals as well, man. And I'll be rooting for you guys at global championships, man. Thank you for hanging out in the lobby with me.
I appreciate that, bro. So I'll see you at globals, man. I'll see you at globals.
See you at globals, broski.
What's going on, Fortnite fam? Welcome to the FNCS. It is so great to see all of you guys again. Come on in, find your seat on the battle bus. We've been gone for 3 weeks, but now we have to get back into the swing of things. We are here in the FNCS semifinals for North America. Players will be battling in the upper bracket and the lower bracket, both happening at the same time, in hopes to claim a spot going to the FNCS Grand Finals of Major number 3. But maybe a little more importantly, there's also 10 spots at the Global Championships in the Grand Finals. A lot at stake here. So why don't we bring in our analysts? You know him, you love him. It is the queen of stats herself, Kelly Link, and the king of my heart, Vivid. Guys, it's great to see you guys. Welcome to FNCS semifinals. How you guys doing?
Starting the show off with a little blushing from Vivid here. Shout out to Zeke. Yeah, I mean, semifinals is here. I think the best thing about semifinals is just thinking about it timeline-wise. I mean, Kelly, next weekend, we've got grand finals. I mean, those slots for global championships and FNCS champion. FNCS is back.
Yeah, and we're just getting a little taste of grand finals today, right? With it being the semifinals, especially the upper bracket, we are going to have the set lobbies from the top 50 duos that earn series points over the first 2 qualifiers. So I love to just see how things have evolved. We've had a long break and things have changed, and maybe some of our teams have changed as well, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, don't spoil the fun, okay, Kelly? There's a couple things we definitely want to talk about. But first, guess what, everybody? We have a very special interview lined up with one of the community's most favorite people of all time. No, it's not Vivid. It's actually Aussie Antics.
People, I mean, that is an intro. How's it going, Zeke? I'm doing very well, mate.
Bro, it's great to see you. Ozzy, welcome to the FNCS broadcast.
Thank you.
Brother. I want to just kind of start it off easy, man. How are you enjoying the FNCS? Because, man, I feel like this is like the stakes have never been higher for the players.
I mean, yeah, I've been enjoying it. It's big. Last 10 spots up for LAN, and I mean, there's a lot of people focusing on it. We've obviously talked a bunch about all the players coming over to NA, thinking it was going to be easier. Now they've been met with probably one of the hardest lobbies I think we've ever seen coming into a grand finals. I mean, I'm super excited.
Oh, Aussie, I'm happy that you kind of tossed me a little layup right there, because I was just going to ask you, how do you feel about all of those regional swaps, right? I mean, EU players moving over here, Middle East players moving over there. Everything is going crazy this major.
I mean, yeah, it's been exciting to watch. I honestly think when I first said it happened, like I don't want to claim this one too much, but I will say I was very early on calling the Mr. Savage mongrel move. Savage was talking on stream like, you know, I've got something big planned next season. It's gonna be really exciting. And I was like, there's no way they're doing it. We've been waiting for a big team to do it. And then he was the last one to announce it. Like 8 other players moved before him. Everyone moved over, and Savage and mongrel announced at the end. And it was like, oh, cool, another team. By that point, it was like everyone had already done it.
Right. And speaking of the FNCS, we've obviously had quite a big break in between, but that doesn't mean that it's been a break from competitive Fortnite. And in fact, you've actually been very involved in EWC, especially the qualifiers that just happened. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, we just had the last online qualifiers for the EWC. In case anyone's watching doesn't know, the Esports World Cup is going to be a $1 million LAN event taking place in Riyadh next month. It's going to be taking place on the 8th. Super exciting. We had the last few spots. There was only 2 spots up for grabs on NA and 2 spots for EU. We had some on the smaller regions as well, and it was a bunch of craziness breaking down. We had DreamHack Dallas, where it was in Dallas on NA, and again, similar to FNCS right now, 4 of the 6 spots went to EU teams. So I feel like NA kind of had to represent, and XSET's made some crazy roster swaps, so it was very exciting.
Bro, I've been following it. It has been absolutely insane. So maybe there's like fans that are watching that are like, dude, what are you talking about? Does that mean it's like more battle royale? It's not that. Can you maybe explain to the fans what it is these guys are playing?
Yeah, sure. So it's creative tournaments. It's 4v4 game mode. There is 3 different maps. There is Capture the Flag and Hardpoint, which is being played for all the qualifiers. And they're adding a 3rd kind of oddball style game mode. If you ever played, you know, regular competitive in other games, you've probably heard of those game modes. But yeah, it's a creative tournament. It's not Battle Royale. It's not 100 different players. It's just 4v4s on small maps made in creative. And it's super fun to watch.
All right, so you're giving us the facts, right? What exactly are the game modes? Now I need an opinion out of you, Aussie.
Okay.
How do you like these game modes? How do you like how they play out?
I really like it. I'm going to be honest, when I first heard about it, I've been following competitive Fortnite since the very beginning, what, 6-7 years now? Like, I mean, I was a bit like, you know, it's creative, it's small game mode. Like, I don't know, we've never really seen this before, but it's been crazy. And it's still got all of the best players. Again, like Falcons team has been the best team so far. It's full of like Tayson, Teeny, you know, players you're used to seeing, and you're seeing them in a completely different format. It's been really, really cool, but it's also been a different change, and it kind of is, for me, made me respect Fortnite players even more. You take them out of the regular battle royale, you put them in a more traditional esports setting, and they still dominate.
I love that you bring up the Falcons, because that leads into my next question is, which team do you think is the most dominant? I'm guessing you're going to pick Falcons, the team that won Dallas. So who do you think is their biggest competition?
It's hard, yeah. Falcons absolutely destroyed Dallas. They managed to make it through without dropping any series, so they won the whole tournament like comfortably. Again, Tayson's now won 6 FNCSs, but that was still one of the most dominant performances I've ever seen in Fortnite. But the online qualifiers changed a lot. We've already had XSET, who was one of the biggest teams coming out of NA. They struggled at Dallas, but they've already now made a team swap. They managed to pick up Cold, filling out their roster, so they're looking very scary, and I don't want it to be an EU runaway, so I'm cheering on Team XSET to try to take it to them. I mean, Agent did really, really well at DreamHack Dallas as well, so probably one of those two teams to take them down.
All right. So if I could ask maybe a team for, how about this weekend, right? FNCS, do you have eyes on anybody you're excited to see perform here in NA?
I mean, I'm always cheering on my boy Muzz. Again, he came over from OC a long time ago. At this point, Muzz is an NA player, basically, and I'm pretty much an NA watcher. But at the same time, Muzz just going through a massive team swap, now playing with Epic Whale, another favorite of mine. I'm cheering on the boys. I really hope they bring it home.
You'll love to see it. Ozzy, it has been so good catching up with you, and great to see you again. Fortnite fam, listen to me. If you don't know who Ozzy is for some strange reason, this guy's amazing. He does watch parties. He's got a tank of fish. His choices on anime are really bad, but that's okay. Ozzy, where can they follow you, please?
Yeah, I mean, Aussie Antics on all my socials as well. If you want to follow all the crazy actions breaking down for the Esports World Cup, twitch.tv/EWC. They're going to be live from the 8th of next month for 3 days for all the event, $1 million LAN event. I will be there watching it on my channel too, but make sure you check them out.
That's right, Ozzy. Thank you so much, man. It's great seeing you again, and we hope to catch up with you sometime later.
Enjoy, guys. Have a good one.
Seriously, Fortnite fam, this guy is amazing. Aussie Antics, please, 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 if for some reason you've never gone and just watched his stream, please just take time, go do that. All right, now as we prepare for the action here, we gotta kind of talk about where we've been, right? Because again, we've been away for 3 weeks. I don't even know what Fortnite is anymore. That's not true. I kind of do. Why don't we start really easy? What's the format like? So maybe you're tuning in, maybe you don't know what's happening. We got you covered. Super simple. So we've got an upper bracket and a lower bracket. Today and tomorrow, basically, if a duo gets a victory out, they're set. They're going right to grand finals. This weekend's done for them. Now, otherwise, players are looking to end in the upper top of this leaderboard today to stay in the upper bracket. Otherwise, they'll fall to the lower bracket. And if they don't perform well enough to fight their way back into the upper bracket, their FNCS run is done. So it's a very, very, very important weekend for so many. And again, the fact that we have 10 spots at the Global Championships and Grand Finals, Biv, it's gonna be a weekend, to say the least.
It's going to be awesome. There are a lot of working parts of the semifinals format. Basically, the gist of it is, though, if you do well, you're going to qualify to finals.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. It is obviously all about the victory royales today, but also you still want to be consistent and make sure you're at least in the top 20, at least making it to round 3, because that's where the big chunk of all of our competitors will be qualifying through.
Okay. So let's take a look at now the series point leaderboard. So this is a top 10. This is basically the top 10 duos right now as far as the series leaderboard is concerned. Right there at the top, Clix and Veno, a duo we're used to seeing. And again, they've already won 3 games in the qualifiers, right? So if we look at today's format, a victory royale automatically qualifies us. They've already done this before.
Yeah, and listen, maybe a name that a lot of people are like, whoa, Veno Clix, how's that possible? Veno is, of course, one of those players moving over to NA, teaming up with Clix. And Kelly, this is something that we talked about all throughout Major number 2, the high ground for Clix. But I think we both kind of agree that so far this duo has definitely figured out something in this Major, especially when it comes to when and how they control the high ground.
Yeah, we've seen them have great performances, obviously, in Qualifier 1, getting first place in Week 2. They got 5th place in some of the most recent Cash Cups. They've performed really well. But my biggest concern for this duo is how emotional they can be. And sometimes that works out so well for them because once they start getting on that positivity and that hype, they just run with it. But it's a double-edged sword where if something minutely bad happens, it seems to snowball for them.
I can never tell if, like, you know, they're creating content or actually mad at each other because they are in, like, the same place. So it's like whenever something bad happens, they just go into the same room and are like kind of arguing or not. But regardless, looking forward to a win from them today.
That's right. So we looked at that top 10, and there's probably a duo you didn't recognize that wasn't in that top 10. It's Peterbot and Poyo. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute. These are defending FNCS champions, but they're not in the top 10. What happened?
Yeah, let's break down the story, right? They won Major 2 very, very convincingly. Came into Major number 3, and it was like, whoa. Qualifier 1, round 4. They did not make it to it. So it was like, oh, okay, so Peterbot and Poyo just won Major 2 off of a fluke. And then Qualifier 2 came around. They were playing pretty strong. And then the Cash Cup that happened yesterday, Kelly, I mean, winning 4 out of the 6 games. They won that. They're looking like they're back.
4 back-to-back wins as well, and it was virtually 5 back-to-back wins. They did get second place in game number 2 and actually went down to Buga and Aviv, but that was because Vino knocked down Peterbot, so essentially it was a 1v2 for Poyo anyway. So I'm going to add a little asterisk there and say that it was pretty much 5 victory royales, and it's Peterbot and Poyo. It's so interesting how quick people were to turn on them this season just because they didn't qualify into round 4 in week 1 of the qualifiers. And within less than a week, they already proved themselves again, running it back, grabbing first place in week number 2. And obviously their performances in the Cash Cup speak for themselves. Peterbot and Poyo haven't gone anywhere. They were never gone to begin with. And I don't think that we're only going to see a victory royale of them today. I think we could see them potentially take first place in the grand finals.
Whoa. Okay, Kelly. All right, Queen of Stats. I'm going to hold you to that. We'll see what happens in grand finals. But for now, the duo you saw there in second place on the series point leaderboard is Batman, Booga, and Rapid. These guys have really found their groove. The asterisk here, though, is, remember, we're looking to get a victory out to auto qual. They have not managed to get one this season.
Yeah, but I mean, listen, we know how the semifinals format works in terms of qualifying for grand finals. I don't think that will be much of a worry. But the crazy thing for me is that recently I feel like they've gained a lot of traction in terms of support from the community. Like, I just keep seeing around in like competitive chats, everybody's like, yeah, like Batman, Boog, and Rapid, they look so good. They're gonna like win this FNCS. And it's like, yeah, let's start putting some respect on their name. I mean, second place on the series point leaderboard, being very, very consistent throughout the qualifiers, that definitely deserves some respect.
I think the respect started rolling in during the Global Championships. They had a pretty good performance, and at that point, they were still, I say unknown. They've been performing well for years now, but that's when they started to break into like the top 10, top 15, and then it's only been rolling for them, just snowballing so hard for them. But like you said, they haven't grabbed a victory royale yet, and that's included in some of the most recent Cash Cups as well. And if you actually look back to Major 2 in their performances, their run through the semifinals was a little rough. They did get into the upper bracket for day 1, no VRs, day 2, no VRs, and they also got into the bottom, the lower bracket, so they had to fight their way through. But as we've seen them do, they're going to make it into the grand finals.
I believe it. I believe it. A final duo to toss your way. It is Muzz and Trashy. Psych. That's what I would have said if that was true. It's actually Muzz and Epic Whale. Guys, again, we've been gone for 3 weeks. What has happened?
How bold do you have to be to switch up duos going into semifinals? I mean, this is a crazy move, but again, you know, we just talked to Aussie about EWC, that creative game mode. Those, of course, consist of teams made up of 4 players, and Xset Muzz was actually on one of those teams with Xset Trashy, but Trashy ended up getting dropped for cold, and everybody was like, yeah, that's going to be weird for the duo, and sure enough, this week, the duo ended up switching up. Now we got Muzz and Epic Whale, and on the other side of the coin, Kelly, Trashy and Threats.
Yeah, Trashy and Threats, in comparison to Muzz and Epic Whales, seem to have gotten the better end of the deal. They placed 9th place in the Cash Cup finals recently, compared to Muzz and Epic Whale, who placed lower. But obviously that is just a single Cash Cup. They'd only been a team and there's extenuating circumstances. It's Muzz, it's Epic Whale. We have to expect them to do well. The amount of wins that these 2 players have between the 2 of them is astronomical. So I can only imagine that we're going to see a better performance out of them today.
That's right. Well, friends, it is that time. 5 games today. Victory Royale, or looking to stay in the top half of the upper bracket at the end of the 5 games. Let's get into it and meet your casters. It's Monster Deface and the Best Taco.
Thank you so very much, Zeke, and that's right. I think Kelly hit a great point there. There are going to be teams that get the short end of the stick in these duo swap-ups. I mean, that is just a matter of fact. Whether you're in the upper bracket or the lower, there's going to be a lot to fight for, and one of those teams to look out for is going to be Trashy, of course. I think that's a team that played together in the past as well. They have previous experience, so this is some interesting duos starting to now come together here, Taco.
Yeah, I remember another one that you mentioned aside from the Trashy and Thread switch up was going to be Scented, now rocking with Hound, and they're going to be landing a little bit east of the Nitrodrome, but it is a really big stake that these players are taking on themselves with these last minute switch ups, so we'll see how it plays out because lobby number 1 is ready to roll.
Game number 1 is here. Let's kick this weekend off. Let's have some fun. It's Friday, and we have a lot of Fortnite action in front of us. Unfortunately for you guys, it's only 5 games, right? It's a fast day as far as normal FNCS dates are concerned, but nonetheless, we are here to enjoy ourselves. So, looking at the drop spot maps, looking at what has been unfolding throughout the weekend, I mean, the southern areas of the map, the Nitrodrome, the Red Line Rig, the Brutal Breachhead, these are some highly contested areas. They've continued to be contested, right, Taco, in the weeks and kind of lead up. Do you expect something different here today?
No, a lot of this is really just going to be so dependent on how these zones actually choose to pool. If they're more northern focused zones, might even have to hold the thought here for a moment because keep in mind, Batman Booga Rapid, they were a team that the analyst desk spoke pretty fondly of, and now we're looking at them with a triple contested situation here at Grimgate. Bucky and Okis, one of those teams involved in the mix, as well as Convict and Vanillas, and this could really shake up a lot of traction here for Batman Booga and Rapid if they're not able to clean up this situation nicely.
Yeah, we've seen Bucky and Okis not necessarily find a lot of success in the early game. They have been one of the teams that have somewhat struggled. However, day in, day out, sticking to the drop week after week, leaning into the cash cups, exiting out of the cash cups. I mean, you can only imagine teams are going to become sharper and sharper as they hone their skills and master their drops. So this is going to be a scary contested area for sure. Jumping over to EU team that is, of course, here on the NA region, on the NA circuit for this season. Mixon and Blah have continued to show us that they are in the running. They're in the middle of the pack, sometimes showing themselves up towards the top of the pack when it comes down to overall performances. This is definitely a scary team. Now, they've also mixed up their drop spot, right? They weren't landing here in the follow-up week, so this is a change happening from the gap time that we've had between the week qualifiers to now. So already we're seeing a new landscape of Fortnite competition.
Not too surprising when you factor in that forecast tower that's just a little bit northwest of Snooty Station. That's a big factor for as to why I believe we're seeing Blaha and Mixon try to take their chances at the Reclaim Villa, even if it means a slight contestation with Aoxy and Jojo Fishy. Early contest could also mean early surge though, but for Walker's current situation here at the Underworld, a little bit problematic, I would definitely say, especially with Batman Boo kind of hovering in his vicinity, but Ritual, they're putting so much pressure right now onto Pilot. Flicks trying to do what he can to see if he can create an opening. Pilot will get an opportunity to get nothing done here. Unfortunate circumstance, he'd already been knocked. So Ritual just now going to lead the charge here onto Flicks, but I like the mentality still from Pilot and Flicks. Pilot has had issues with getting contested early on, so trying to see if he could stake out a different position here at the Reckless Railways, but it's going to be tough when you're dealing with Reet and Ritual, who have been landing here for consistent seasons in a row.
That's right, and Reet and Ritual are honestly my pick here on the day. Put the stamp on it. For Miro in pink is another team that is inside that top 5 overall series points leaning into this, so another favorite, if you will. If anything, the conversation around Miro and pink have been somewhat subdued in lead up to this this qualifier here today, this uppers, and they're mostly because we've had our focus in on the Clicks, the Vino, right? And some of these other duos, they've kind of taken the attention, I would say, away from some of the other star duos that are making an appearance this weekend. And because of that, there are some sleeper teams. You never really know. Jumping in with Pollo and Peterbot being somehow a part of those sleeper teams, right? Because they had one short performance and all of a sudden people figure, oh, they're out of their running. I wouldn't count them out. If I were you, this is definitely a team that has the highest caliber, the highest potential. And talking about Clix and Vino, let's jump in with them. Very standard for them to be playing very far apart. If you've done any studying on their gameplay, Vino, no stranger to just playing off on his own. And of course, utilizing his Nitro to get out if he finds himself in a bad spot. But so far, so good as they start fishing for tags here.
It's a solid position as well for Veno, just trying to play this hill next to Sandy Steps, but do have to be cautious. Don't want to overpeak by any means. That friendly tag into his shield from what looked to be Yoxi or Jojo Fishy, but it's also makes sense because Veno's the one rocking the purple Huntress DMR. Whoever's got the Huntress DMR or that Enforcer Assault Rifle is usually going to be leading the charge in terms of trying to get that surge early on. And we saw earlier today in EU, a lot of the mid-game action was just so dependent on whether or not players were actually able to take advantage of having that DMR in their hands, MDF, and I'm almost kind of expecting the same course of action to take place here in NA. You might see some teams looking for those early surge trades, but again, if these zones pull more towards that desert area in that south section, I would expect that the surge thresholds would be exponentially higher because teams can just build these surge bases around those slurp cactuses, and then it becomes all that much easier to try and stake out shots, go for those exchanges, because when you get a free 30 of either white HP or shield or a little mixture of both, I mean, what risk is there really involved?
I mean, that's a great lens to put the game into, right? Like, and sometimes players don't even think that far ahead, right? Oh, the zone pulls south. Sometimes that doesn't even become a thought in your mind, but you're totally right. Given the fact that if you are based up around the cactus, teams are way more likely to start trading tags, right? And taking a little bit more risk because they have the option to do so.
Yeah, even throughout the course of yesterday's Cash Cup Finals action, I remember one lobby we saw a circumstance where the surge became such a heavy factor because there was those southern pulling zones over and over again, and players were actually getting rebooted, which was bringing a larger number back into the lobby as opposed to what things could have been. But we saw that forecast secured taking place here. Yapko, Quanti, a little bit of a precarious position. Yapko, though, ample amounts of medkits. Seems as though their heal situation is definitely on lock, so no real threat as of yet, but definitely head on a swivel at this point. Yapko and Quanti, you can tell that they are one of our teams currently seeking out their search strategy as is.
Interesting, though. He's going to opt to take the minis for the road there. Jumping in with Vanilla and Noisy. Noisy playing for the pickup right now. Tony knocked in the exchange here as there was another duo that jumped in, and to the north of the Grim Gate, there's a team lurking nearby. We know that Pink and Mira was also landing outside of the Grim Gate. They're kind of in this vicinity, also playing a little bit of a gatekeeper here, but all of these teams will have to get a move on here shortly as the pressure will begin to mount up. Think about it, only 7 teams have been dropped so far, so action taking a turn for the worse now as things slow down a bit here, coming into the mid-game. There is action happening in other places. You blinked, you missed it. The feed was lighting up. It's Vanilla's just giving us a show here on broadcast right now. This is not too far off from Noisy and company, just outside of the Grim Gate. And then we have Vert on the rotate here down in the low ground. Vert and Kai, this is a strong duo here. Vert, exceptional solo player if you guys have never seen what he is capable of. Absolutely one of the savages up at the top here.
But at the same time, would definitely prefer to play with his duo. But knowing that he's got that kind of performance capability in the back pocket is definitely going to give a pretty massive confidence boost 9 times out of 10. Granted, when it comes to these set lobbies in semis, I think a big part of the reason, everybody says the same thing at BF. It's like you can't really be too dependent on how those Cash Cup performances are actually shaping up, because at the end of the day, it's a Cash Cup lobby versus the semis and grands lobby, and it's like a whole different standard just comes into the mix.
Take a look at this, Clix. No duo mate here. Vino Knock. Now, we do know that Vino and Clix play so far apart in the early game because they are fishing, constantly fishing for tags, for damage tags here. And it does seem like this may have backfired. The story there to be determined, essentially. But Clix, you can see what his game plan is. Stay in the zone. He's got his med kits, but he wants to venture out. He wants to find a little bit more here while he has the chance to, and possibly play for this pickup. I don't know if the game plan is going to be to wait a little bit, but it seems like he's got his marker down, so he's going right for it here and now. But before we get there, we have a fight going down. Victor and Paper, this is a team that is very much new, right? When it comes down to playing with one another here. So I don't know what to make of this potential performance.
I love the fact that they're actually in person playing together, though. Both having opted to relocate to an area in Texas that'll allow them to have that lower ping possibility. And Paper, he's honestly been on fire recently, especially when he gets a hold of a hand cannon, for example. One of the few players that I think can actually reap full benefits from it. But you can see right now, first item in his loadout, he's going to put a lot of dependency into that hand cannon for just overall damage. But if you're accurate, it is definitely a lot more potent than what the Hintress DMR can provide. At the same time, though, Chimp and Scissor, they are no rollover team by any means. This is now just kind of wearing down everybody's builds. Chimp down to his final 11. Victor still trying to apply some pressure, going for a nice angle shot there, but at the same time, he's not going to be able to get any slight edge. At the same time, though, knowing that Victor and Paper are the ones fully in control of this weapons bunker, Scissor and Chimp, they could look to play for time here, but at the same time, that might just work against them, MDF, because again, materials matter so much when you're approaching that mid-game aspect, and if you burn them all in an exchange that doesn't pan out in your favor, you're kind of just left with nothing except for scraps.
Take a look at that upgrade right there. Paper running down and giving Victor the SMG so he can hold his own, the burst up top. Very subtle, but very important to switch the pressure. You can see that backs off the opponents there shortly, but jumping in with Kanata and Cooper. A lot of weeks now of practice under their belt, as this is a new forming duo for the Team Dignitas here. I like what we have on sites, though. DMR in hand. Look at the bases positioned everywhere. Almost a new strategy of sorts, right? These hyper-protected domes all around.
I think the main thing to consider, though, is that here at the Nitrodrome, there is an ample amount of slurp cactuses to essentially build your surge base on. And that's a rather reoccurring strategy as well for Kanata and Cooper. Wouldn't be surprised if there's a slurp cactus directly beneath where they are currently situated, but spaces as well. You are just so safe when you are looking for your peak opportunities. Kanata nearly catching wind of some tags, but unfortunately the edits are going to come back through. Cone's going to be rebuilt, and that's not going to net him anything for the time being. Miro and Pink, on the other hand, though, and not necessarily a shambles situation by any means, considering that, again, Miro being able to depend on this slurp cactus, he's just going to leave the brunt of the task for Pink to kind of handle the surge situation until he's back to fully healthy.
That's right. It's the little things like that that are going to give them the advantage in the long run and honestly help save resources for the late game. And Pink could also use a little bit of that regeneration from the cactus down low, so he'll likely be jumping down here shortly as well. And talking about that ammo count, that is right. He is very, very low. Big rips down as he lands some massive tags there, and Miro pinched between two players, so has to be careful about that full duo for Muzz and Epic. Ozzy hinted at it. This is a fresh duo pairing up right now. Of all the teams that mixed up, right, the rules are pretty much clear. You can swap if teams come to mutual agreement, essentially. And for the first time right now, we have Epic Whale and Muzz playing with one another, collectively holding amongst themselves some of the most FNCS wins under their belt. So this is an extremely tenured veteran duo. Exciting, right? Exciting to see Epic Whale paired up with the Muzz. We haven't seen Epic find his stride just yet since the merging of Central here, so I'm curious to see, as I feel like Muzz has been peaking lately. He's really been at the top of his game.
Muzz has definitely been heavily regarded as a player where anytime a new competitive meta drops, you know that Muzz is going to be at the very top of it. And seeing Muzz and Epic Whale kind of rocking things out together, it was definitely a surprising switch up to occur so last minute, MDF, but definitely one of those teams where when you see the two actually functioning, it's like the synergy and the chemistry doesn't even have to be 100% yet. All that matters as far as the day is concerned is finding that victory royale, and you've got 5 separate matches to do it. And again, like you mentioned, with players that have so much tenure as is, they'll definitely know the right components that they need to try and find that victory.
A lot of trades happening right now. This is a little box fight here unfolding. Bolts and Bryce back against the wall. Or I should say against the storm, as they're the team on the outermost edge, but they're looking to push back. You have Chip and Scissors getting tagged up from above and a team behind them, but big exchanges here as Bryce nearly loses his tournament position for a moment there, but in the end, they do walk away with the spoils and some of the points there. Vino picked up back in the game here, all thanks to the hard efforts of Clix. Now gives them a second chance here, a second win in this game of Fortnite now. They have problems, a lot of trouble here with the damage. Of course, you have to consider the fact that given Vino and Clix were put in such a bad position early on, they haven't had the time, the luxury to fish for damage, and this has set them so far behind, so a fight here is inevitable.
Bacon and Zooks are aware of it too. Anytime you start to get relatively keyed, you have to expect as a team that's probably desperate for a little bit of that surge threshold. Clix here though, on the back foot, trying to do what he can to escape. Gonna take the flaming booster, but it's not enough. The shots from Zooks, all the better still. Clix's efforts now seemingly in vain. It's all down to Veno on whether or not he can actually try and recover this yet again. But one solid elimination here for Bacon and Zooks. And largely a play that came so heavily into their favor because Veno and Clix just made the play to reboot Veno. They weren't necessarily in a fighting position. It was relatively easy, I think, for Zooks and Bacon to essentially hold them towards that last edge of zone. So it's just such a tough break here now for this team. But Veno, if anybody can get the job done, definitely looking at him.
Take a look from Zook's perspective here. He catches wind of Clix, and honestly, this is all because Clix did make a mistake. He missed the jump there when tailing behind Veno on the rotation there. You can see how one false move and the pro players won't let you down for it. So well played for Zooks, picking up his very early elimination there. Here we have perspective in on Okus here. Laser focus happening right now as they're sitting deep in the storm right now, and there are several other teams around them. You can also tell that the rotate here is going to put them right in between all these other squads who very much likely use that same boost hoop to get to this position as well. But there's no focus on them just yet, so Okus and Bucky should have a time here now. A chance, if you will, to get some of those teams that are rotating late. There's one. That's actually Cooper. Very hurt there, but saved by the wall just in time.
Doesn't seem as though Bucky and Okus feel comfortable enough just yet. They know there's just too many other teams lurking nearby that if they were to essentially try and key Cooper and Kanata in that circumstance, they might just wind up being third party themselves. Kanata, Cooper, Bucky, Okus, everybody's intention for hanging out near the bottom of Rift Island was to take those rifts for the next rotate. Reet and Ritual now caught in the thick of it. Reet trying to do what he can to escape. He's gonna have to leave Ritual behind, picked off by Paper and Victor, who seem to have found a little bit of momentum here.
Oh, we talked about it, man. Paper and Victor playing in person. Paper has played several seasons now in person with all of his duos. I love to see that level of initiative taking place, and for him to start seeing results off the back of that effort is definitely great. Talk about that effort. You have Muzz and Epic Whale here to the side of Victor, but no pressure, no sweat. They make it into their new spot now. Just look at all the danger surrounding them here at this POI. It is not looking good. It's not looking good for Reet either. What is he gonna do? It seems like he might be out of builds. Oh, he's got a little something to work with, but he's just ratting his way through as he needs damage. So into the box he goes, and oh my gosh, body slammed by Paper and Victor and sent right back to the lobby.
unintentionally finishing what they'd started when you really pulled it all down. Not sure they were even expecting for that to take place, but Reet and Ritual now defeated. They'll have to wait for lobby number 2 to try and find their Victor Royale. Paper and Victor, though, that's a massive refresh to get at a pretty crucial time. Play a fine higher, trying to make something out of nothing, but it's not going to work out. Zooks holding it down for the time being, but caught between 2 separate teams. Rather dire position, and Booga, sure enough, will be able to clean him up for it. Now, Muzz and Epic, they're trying to see if they can create a little bit of space here on this low ground, but they're willing to stick it out just a little bit longer, kind of playing more towards that backside of zone. And
Oh my
Booga,
gosh.
lobby focused instantly off the Crash Pad Jr.
Not working very well. The rotate obviously seems like, you know, second nature. Take the crash pad, get to the next side of the zone, but the angle, terrible as he gets shredded up. Now pays the price for it.
Oi.
And he does it again. Okay, fool me once, shame on me. Twice, you can take responsibility for that one. Cease and Jack pick up all the loot there. They are going to be the victors of the spoils. On the other side, Cooper and Kanata, from their bad rotation, from the damage they were taking, they were 700 above. They've slipped down a fair amount, showing that they've been passive through the chaos, if you will, of the last couple of zones, but they don't have to. They had such a strong early game. Meanwhile, Trashy and Threats, these are teams that have banded together. Muzz and Epic Whale popping off right now. Trashy and Threats popping off as well. Both teams having 3 eliminations, now edging their way into the top 25. That's a surprise story, if I do say so myself. Did not expect any of these fresh duos to come in here and just start to figure it out so late into the semis bracket here, but what a strong game 1 we're setting ourselves up for already, but it's not over just yet. We, of course, have to continue to play this endgame out now. This is where things are going to start to really turn online. So you got Peterbot and Pollo here, sizing up Bolton. Bryce on this rotate here, potentially looking to go for high ground, but they recognize some weak wooden floors there. Luckily, there were cones in that build that were made out of metal, because if it wasn't Taco, that'd be a completely different story.
Yeah, getting chopped out from what looked like secondary height was definitely not going to be a very happy ending for them. But what's interesting is that Peterbot and Pollo, they're actually sitting nearly 500 damage above the surge threshold. And I had Prodigy Analytics run a handful of numbers for me. When it comes to these south pooling zones, like we were talking about a little bit early on, MDF, you need roughly a couple hundred more damage than what you would typically require to stay above that damage threshold, because the surge just gets so much exponentially larger whenever these teams are able to play around some of these slurred cactuses and whatnot. And with the fast-paced movement that is usually involved in these later zones, it's kind of insane to see a lot of our more veteran teams still doing an excellent job at just micromanaging that surge strategy on top of it all. But Pollo and Peterbot, man, they have already conquered height, and they look like they're trying to set up entirely for just full controlling it.
Yeah, we just watched them. They were not on high ground. They were actually on the outskirts making their rotate, but between the Flowberry Fizz and the Crash Pad now, a well-timed high ground take. There was 110 builds on Pollo when we jumped in originally, 30. Now being invested into this high ground position. That's a lot, as we have 3 more zones to continue to pull here. So will they have enough to maintain the high ground spot? Only time will tell here. Below them, you have an upset Tekka and Paco, right? They just lost their high ground spot. They're probably thinking about the retake here. Meanwhile, Tayson and Yamzo, as devious as ever, kind of in this mid-ground layer here. Down to the low ground, actually, on the front side. Finds Agers and just shreds him there with the support of the zone there. That's going to be elimination to come here shortly. But they have to make a move here. They're also below the surge, so I expect them to likely jump into a duo, likely forced here.
Taking a peek now at Trashy. Ample amounts of Nitro Splash to go around. It's all about where they tarp to. Trashy Threats trying to lead the way through this mid-ground section. It looks as though they want to go for a layer switch, but one tier above them, it's going to be Kanata and Cooper actually trying to keep them at bay. Kanata, Cooper, a little bit shambles as is, MDF. They really need this refresh. They might even get more aggressive onto Threats and Trashy, because they need the materials that they expect this to transition into a solid late game performance. Paco or Tekka on the high ground now. They take out Cease. and it's all metal cones up above. You have to wonder what happened to Peterbot and Pollo.
What a huge catch, though, for Paco and Tekka here. Finding Cease and actually securing the loot before it falls down means that they have way more to work with than they started with up top. And that's going to be a big come up here. I wonder if Jack's still alive, but Peterbot and Pollo, we talked about it. Where were they? They're on the front side of zone. They actually have given up the high ground. They didn't want to play the build game out. They come down, and they still are very much healthy. So this is about the points. They have 0 eliminations right now. And just a couple of placements being earned here. I mean, we're not even inside the top 10 just yet. So there is a long way to go, and it feels crazy to say that given that we are in the end game, yet the goalpost is so far ahead. It just continues to literally move here and now. Dace Niamzo in the conversation here. 7 builds, 3 eliminations though. Make that 4 as they get delivered 1 on the backside of zone, and the pressure is continuing on here. And it is just action on every side of the low ground. Every single team is down here other than Tekka and Paco up top watching this all unfold.
The moment you try to take a wall, you've got another duo pressing the lead charge against you. Epic, Muzz. Epic actually just trying to get that med kit off for placement points. He lost Muzz along the way. Peterbot Pollo back to the high ground where Tekka Paco sent scrambling into the low. Peterbot trying to do what he can to try and suppress some of those mid to low ground layers, and this is the moment they were waiting for. MDF Peterbot gonna drop just for a moment, just wanted the loot refresh more than anything else. Only has a handful of builds remaining, but this is still a strong position for them to be holding Sphinx and Dukes all the way down in the dirt here at Brawler's Battleground. They look as if they might be able to actually take this game by force, though.
I like what we're watching unfold right now as Edgy and Ackerman have 4 eliminations, and well, we haven't seen Edgy turn online like this in a hot minute, but it seems like Team Xset is just on the rise right now. Down comes Peterbot and Pollo with a better angle, the indestructible clip to hang on. He's got the high ground advantage and the Fizz to jump up to the top, but was it too early? That's 1 tag. Can he get the second? But no. Dukes, in great fashion, claps back and secures himself a Victor Royale and sends himself on to the next stage.
Yeah, I appreciate Dukes and Sphinx for holding it down there at the end, MDF, because it just looked like they were just going to shy away with this one. I think Edgy just doing a little bit too much of that focus rendition there. He just took away a lot of that focus from Peterbot and Pollo, and it just opened the door entirely. Sphinx and Dukes played their timing perfectly here.
Yeah, respect to Team Outlaws making it that far, but at the end, Peterbot and Pollo, man, smart execution for them to at least retake high ground, get second, but Dukes and Sphinx were just better, right? Just a little bit sharper playing their way through the low ground, and I don't know how they timed it, because with so many teams fighting, it was incredible. But with that, we're going to take a short moment here to calculate some scores, and when we return, we'll have more Fortnite.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the FNCS. We just wrapped up the first of 5 games, and man, oh man, Peterbot and Pollo did not get the victory royale. Sphinx and Dukes did, and you know, for a moment there, I was just like, oh, it's fine, right? Like, you know, Vivid calls that, look at this, you know, we're gonna cut away, you know, we're gonna see, the moment we come back to high ground, look at that, it's Peterbot and Pollo, boom, like clockwork. And then in the final moments of the game, Sphinx and Dukes just say, you know what? Nah, we want the victory royale. We want grand finals. We want it now.
Yeah, one of those crazy scenarios actually where Peterbot and Pollo ran out of materials on the high ground, had none left to continue their tarp up there. And usually they have so many materials because they're used to getting so many eliminations in the end game. But on the flip side of things, it was actually Dukes and Sphinx who were able to find refreshes at just the right time, have enough mats to fend and defend the low ground, come out with the win.
I love that yesterday in the Duo Cash Cup finals, they also took the first game's victory royale, although it was a heel-off that they won against Yamzo and Tayson. So I love to see that they have multiple ways that they can win. They don't even need the high ground like everyone else. Dukes and Sphinx is here to prove to themselves that they have earned their spot in the grand finals.
Gotta just think too on the other side, right? It used to be Pollo and Sphinx, and now they've kind of separated and kind of coming down to that 1v1 against your old duo mate and them qualifying for grand finals. But it's fine. Nobody panic. Calm down for more games. Let's take a look at the standings, though. What's kind of transpiring? Remember, we wanted to stay in the upper half of the bracket by the end of the day to keep ourselves in the upper bracket. Right now, obviously, if you look at the top, you're like, 1,000 points, Zeke. What's going? Don't worry about it. It just means they won. They're good. We'll see them in next week in grand finals. But as we kind of start to kind of turn attention down, I would like to call out second place 10 elims in game number 1.
Oh yeah, crazy performance. I remember, like, you know, I saw Peterbot and Pollo, they were on the high ground, and then like a couple seconds later, I was like, whoa, Paco, Tekka, now they're on the high ground, and somehow they ended up finding 10 eliminations. But let's go ahead and talk about that team, Peterbot and Pollo, right? Because typically, this is the team that holds high ground for the majority of the end game. And for some reason, towards the end of this game, they were kind of like going back and forth. I think they were on higher ground like 3 separate times, and they ended up going down to like all the way to the low ground and somehow retaking it like 2 other times. So crazy stuff from them in terms of strategy. But yeah, I mean, still can't really complain because they picked up a second place, still performing well, and they're still the high ground kings that we know them, Kelly.
Yeah, and you have to wonder if it was a 2v2 instead of there being a third team right there. It definitely could have been Peterbot and Pollo's game, but like you said, having them take height, lose height, and then retake height just meant that all of their mats were gone by the time it finally got to the very end right there. So they weren't able to kind of pull out the strat that they usually do, which is Pollo stay high, Peterbot draws low. If there's the potential heal off, Pollo will be good. So not the perfect situation for Peterbot and Pollo, but clearly they have it in the pocket. They know what to do to get this victory royale. And game number 2 might be it for them.
And I like that you kind of call out the fact that there's like this third party member, right? This third solo running around. We saw this a lot in EU if you watch that as well. It kind of came down to this, you know, you looking at it, you're like, these guys have won, right? It's clear. And then this solo rider just like messing up all the plans for everyone involved, right? We got to make sure we just bring this down to a 1v1 or a 2v2 because we don't want that extra factor to kind of derail things for us. Another duo that performed here, Yamzo and Tayson. Once again, another player, Tayson, coming over from EU and now duo it up with Yamzo. I know some of you are probably used to saying Yamzo and Rise, but how did these guys do in game number 1?
Oh, extremely well, right? I mean, you can see how many materials they have, and I always love to see how many materials a team has when it comes down to this like 10th, 11th zone. But as you can see there, a little bit of an early rotation from Tayson, or a little bit unprotected one, is going to take so much damage. They got to overbuild for that, and then right here on the low ground, I thought they were going to be in a good spot, but ultimately ended up getting suffocated, lost their positioning because Tayson did have to heal because he got cracked on that rotate.
Yeah, Yamzo and Tayson are clearly one of the top teams that we've seen, especially with all the EU players coming over here, and they showcased that in game number 1. They showed that yesterday in the Cash Cups. Although they didn't grab a victory royale, they did get top 10 in 5 out of their 6 games. And they even got a second place yesterday as well. So you know that they don't want that second place. They don't care about consistency right now. They want to make it into that first place spot.
Another duo we kind of highlighted at the top of show, it's Muzz and Epic. Remember, we mentioned these guys went from Muzz and Trashy to now Muzz and Epic Whale. And this first game, right? I think the question was like, do they have what it takes, right? Is this the kind of change we need to be making in the final hours of it all? And it seems like, yeah, this is working.
Yeah, not gonna lie. I mean, watching through some of these highlights of that game, some incredible plays from Muzz and Epic Bow. And honestly, I always thought that Muzz is one of the best individual players, especially when it came down to like knowing all of the mechanics in the game and using them to the best of his ability. And I always felt like he just needed like a really strong IGL that could follow up on that. But this duo could really work out well. And so far, great performance in game number 1.
Yeah, you know how we always used to say Kanata was like the best player that's never won? And obviously that changed last year when he did win. And Muzz has obviously won a lot, but he's the best player that hasn't won in like a year. There's something about Muzz who is so just substantial when it comes to representation of a Fortnite pro. Everything he does is like some of the best, but he just can't get that win.
I know, but maybe this could be the difference, right? Maybe it's a win at Globals. We'll find out, and we'll keep track with this storyline. But for now, I know what you want. Game number 2, I want that as well. So find your seats on the Battle Bus. Casters, please take it away.
Thank you, Zeke. And that's right. We saw Trashy as well as one of those teams that are new and also shaking things up towards the top, making a top 10 performance. So Taco, already some upsets happening here.
Yeah, and it's kind of to be anticipated. I mean, we saw how much congestion was actually building around Red Light Rig when we were looking at that 7th, 8th zone. So a lot of players, I think, just trying to survive, essentially, when it came to the low ground factor. It's just really difficult to try and stay on top of everything, MDF.
Yeah, that is true. Well, we're gearing up for game 2 now as Game 1 is completely concluded. There's only 5 rounds of Fortnite in front of us. And again, if you win a round, you are going straight to the grand finals. So no need to worry about your position here in the upper or lower bracket or continuing through. It is really, I would say, a pressure alleviated off of your shoulders. Now, if you've done as well as someone like Tekka and Paco, I mean, technically you can coast your way to a top 25. You'll likely be moving on to the next stages regardless of your performances. But it still comes down to this. So let's jump into game number 2. Taco, take us away.
That's right, Monster. Game number 1, Vorteca and Paco, they fall just a little bit short. And in a sense, you would think that, yeah, it feels good knowing you've got essentially the setup to maintain that upper bracket position for day 2. But at the same time, Monster, we all know these players would rather just get their win and be in.
Yeah, I agree with you. You want to get the dub. You want to lock this away. You want to start gearing up for grand finals, claiming your drop spot nice and early. But still, grand finals a week away. For some, just 3 games away potentially. So we'll see. Early look at Noah plays right now with his teammate Liam here. A very contested Nitro Dome. This is by no means a fun drop to be a part of when you're the team in the middle of this sandwich right now. On the side, it's Chubbs there. One of those fresh duos. I'm not sure what Liam and Noah's strategy is going to be here. It's almost like a pick your poison type situation. They're going to be rotating likely closer and closer to Skittles and Chubbs. Little do they know, though, Chubbs and Skittles already looted this drop here, so they'll have to pick up the signs here shortly. On the other side, fights happening right now for Mixin as they go back to the old trusty drop. We mentioned this in the first game, and they've come back to test Quanti. And you know what? They had success against Quanti before. Let's remember, back to the second qualifier. I do believe they were on the upper side of the overall results. But nonetheless, they're here. It's a toe-to-toe, and look at that. Mixin and company come up on top.
You know what it is? Here at Research Rock, Mixin Blaha, they drop to the opposite end of the southern side of the map over towards Reclaim Villa. I almost feel like they did that just to give Quanti and Yapko a false sense of security at this point. Or maybe they just felt as though the situation, trying to make a play for that forecast tower and whatnot, just didn't necessarily work well enough for them to feel comfortable with. You know, you don't want to slam your head against the wall and not get any results. And when you're looking at a situation where Victor Royale is everything.
I wouldn't suggest anyone slam your head against the wall for any reason. Okay. It's just not a good idea. No, but all jokes aside, I do agree with you. You know, trying their hand at a different drop, yeah, clearly wasn't the best, and they're coming back to the old trusty.
And hey, if it works, it works. Now it's all about trying to translate that initial hot drop into, again, a late game performance that could essentially net them the victory royale that they're hoping for, so they can secure their position on the battle bus for that grand finals taking place next week here. But we are looking at a little bit of a different situation in general on DF, just because it is only 5 matches that are going to be played here today. I think some players can sometimes be a little bit more conditioned towards that 6-game format, for example, but not going to be the case here for upper bracket day 1.
Yeah, and the thing about a 5-game format is, I mean, every individual game just has that much more weight, right? It's more significant to the overall standings. Take a look here as Baka and Pars in a standoff outside the Grim Gate. This is up against Bucky and Okis, and you can see that they come out on top, and that was an instant elimination. So a quick 2-piece finish for both of the players there. End up supporting Baka and Pars' mission to the top here after they also had an excellent showing in the last game. They were making an Endgame. Right before the event actually began today, I was a little braggadocious about Baka and Pars, just saying, hey man, I need to see them up at the top again. They're a fun team to root for, even better team to watch play well. But here we have Hound. I find it pretty incredible that Hound in Qualifier 2 was up towards the top 10 and actually ended up losing his duo mate. So now we're just watching what could be of this potential team here. So far, the points are a little dismal in this early game. Not looking great by any means.
Yeah, Scented. He is a fan, clearly, of Bucky as well. I mean, you have to consider team agent. You know, you're both repping the same aura. You're bound to build a little bit of camaraderie there for sure. But Scented is going to be Hound's duo for this day 1 of uppers. And yeah, like you talked about, MDF, for Hound to have already been solidified in that top 10 initially series points wise, and then to last minute go for this exchange and now be working with Scented, and they're in a drop spot position that can be relatively difficult to play from, just considering that they're looking to be so far north of the map essentially. But again, I think that a part of it as well can just be the fact that when you know that there's so much action taking place just east of the Nitrodrome, it's just really difficult because there's like 3 separate teams that are essentially kind of surrounding Scented and Hound from their initial drop, just a little bit outside of the, like, it's in between Little Villa and Nitrodrome. So it is just, I think, difficult to actually loot up safely like you would kind of want to do, and then your mid game just gets all the more problematic because teams are already building these surge bases around those slurp cactuses. So what are you really left with?
That is right. Resources start to run thin, but we have a little bit of action unfolding here, Taco. We have Victor and Paper. We saw what they were cooking with in the last end game. If they can make it that far, clearly they're a threat to be reckoned with, but they don't find what they're looking for. Possibly just a couple tags and a fake out, and off they go. Meanwhile, Kai and Vert now left to pick up the pieces here. They'll have to refarm what they lost in this battle. Another team lurking nearby. Let's see if the shots open up here. Kai and Vert completely exposed right now. Oh, it's Paper. They just hit the old loop-de-loop all the way around the corner, and they're going to be back on the prowl here, if you will. Paper still giving his attention up towards the high ground of Vert. Kai's going to crash pad out of there. And now they lose what little bit of an advantage they had from the surprise attack. But on the other side, Oliver OG playing the low ground right now. Based up, boxed up. Craze getting pushed in by Chris. Noxy on the other side here.
Oliver trying to see if he can get behind Noxy. He's now currently above everyone else, but at the same time, is it really able to alleviate that much pressure from Craze? Craze doing what he can to try and slip away from Noxy, but this is a good hold from Oliver, making sure that Chris can't follow up on the pressure that Noxy was trying to apply onto Craze's walls, just because Oliver had that slight height leverage. And it looks as though it could potentially be a full disengage, but no. Noxy gonna eat a couple of tags in the process here, but Oliver OG, Craze, they do an excellent job at kind of just fending for themselves, holding down their position, and they're even feeling confident enough to give chase to this. It seems as though they're willing to just stake everything on finding this early surge damage onto Noxy and Chris, or even better still, MDF, those eliminations, refreshing their materials.
Yeah, I think we're seeing just the confidence come out because they felt like they were by far the better duo, and you can see they've began to exhaust the material count out of Noxy and Crisp as they've already swapped down to their light builds there. So a lot of resources invested here. Finally now they push back, not looking to jump into the bush by any means. That's a risk all around and not one that they're willing to take. And look at this, Noxy still has resources to work with, so they're not too worried about it. They'll be able to jump back, but talking about a team that's been jumping into the action, quite literally, Muzz and Epic Whale have shown us what they're capable of. We could be seeing the early happenings, chance happenings, if you will, of an amazing duo to be a team that is so storied here. The legacy that exists amongst Muzz and Epic Whale is one to be in awe of. Love to see it continue to perform. Muzz showing us what he's capable of. Jumps in, takes the side wall, but unfortunately the pressure answers back. But Epic Whale finding way more success on his side. Look at the HP count on Raze here. He put a lot of damage in onto Curly and Raze there. Curly has to jump back up his teammate right now.
That was a really strong pump shot, though, from Curly. That pressure that he put onto Muzz, forcing him to disengage temporarily. That's what really provided Raze a slight opportunity to get that white HP a little bit more online than where he was last seen at, but it's still right there with you, Monster. This is not the health disparity that you would want to take place as far as a box fight is concerned, especially when dealing with the likes of Epic and Muzz. If it's a war of attrition, it seems as though Epic and Muzz are definitely looking a lot more like they're going to come out on top for it.
Yeah, you can see Epic Whale just trying to mess around, playing brain games, backing up, acting like he's going to come in from a new angle, swinging back around, taking little by little territory away from Curly and Raze. And when their guards are let down, Epic claps back again. Curly hurt. Caught healing there, and that's a mistake you don't make. You don't walk into the enemy's line of fire with your heals out, and Epic Whale absolutely punishes Curly for the move there. Should be all but seconds. There it is. Before Muzz picks up the elimination. This is attracting attention nearby, but no one looking to leave their draw spots here and get into the heart of the reels. So overall, Epic Whale and Muzz come up on 2 eliminations. Plenty of tags, by the way, and a lot of material to jump back into it. And look at that. Not only that, they have the zone, right? So they don't even have to leave this monstrous base that they've invested into. So all around, perfect fight. Great scenario for them, and this should be a good endgame.
Yeah, and it's no surprise, really. As soon as that shield crack came through, you knew they were going to key instantaneously after the fact, and unfortunate stuff there for Raze. But at the same time, Epic Whale and Muzz, yeah, definitely netting a lot of the profit here, but Mixon and Blaha, we'll have to check back in with them later. Walker's Mason getting a little active here now. It's over the weapons bunker yet again. Walker's just trying to slam immediately into the box, and it's gonna be to their advantage. Needed that to make sure that he could get the revive off onto Mason. So again, team certainly locking down their surge damage that they definitely will be needing later on.
Peter Botafoyo on the move right now, also looking to make their way towards the cactus here. A lot of health to make up for. So we're going to be based up around this area for quite some time. Not too sure about where they're in the standing right now for overall damage, given how south they are on the map right now, but Peterbot does have an elimination, so take that into account. On the other side, Oliver OG and Craze have not based down since the last time we tuned in with them. They continue to be on foot here, giving trouble to duo after duo. Anyone that seems to jump into their path is in for a fight.
But that's the pure disengage. Fullberry Fizz into the Flaming Boost Tube, and they are clear out of there from Grand Glacier. I think that Crazy and Oliver OG kind of just recognize the fact that maybe if they move a little bit closer towards this Rift Island spawn, they'll be able to try and net a little bit more surge damage, but also just look for very needed material refresh that Rift Island can provide, as well as just that quick rotation capability as well, if you're able to utilize the launch pad there, or even the rift surrounding that island. So definitely looking forward to seeing what they're able to cook up from that last position. Trashy and Threats, on the other hand, still stuck a little bit here at the Nitrodrome. Several other teams relatively local to their position, but Chubbs and Skittles, they don't seem like they want to stick around for that much longer. They know they can just catch Slurp Cactuses on the rotate out. They're trying to move a little bit more south as well. It seems as though they want to just try and maybe hang out in the storm slightly longer. They know that they can because of the Slurp Cactuses too.
It's definitely impressive how, you know, mapped out they have this rotation here. Vert and Kai with a little bit of a position over Victor and Paper underneath, but Paper and Victor already played their hands a bit ago. So they have the damage, and we know very likely shouldn't need to do anything too drastic here, but Vert and Kai aren't feeling it. They want to move away and get onto the team that they tag. Little bit in know it is a Pollo and Peterbot here. They recognize that there's some wood walls on the base down low. They put some damage in, so this could be a team that's a bit hurt. But no, Kai gets hurt. He gets tagged, and I think they realize here, wait a second, this team might be the real deal. Let's give ourselves some space, and it is going to be the right call. Little do they know, it could have all been likely wrapped up if they made an error there.
And just look at the way that Peterbot and Pollo have based around this flaming boost tube. They are essentially bottlenecking everyone that's trying to depend on this form of mobility. And that's part of the reason why I think we see them sitting at nearly 1,200 above the damage threshold, because teams, they want to make those rotates and they want to make them fast monster, but what can you really do when you've got a team as experienced as Peterbot and Pollo, and so mechanically strong as well, just camping out the best form of rotational capability nearby?
Look at this, Tayson runs up on Zooks there, catching him off guard as they're moving through. Only 81 above, so yeah, this is a tight spot to be in. If you've ever found yourself in a position where the surge is this close, you are recognizing here now that you absolutely have to push for a fight.
Can be a bit of an awkward spot as well, depending on how long that exchange actually takes. I mean, we know time to elimination can definitely be detrimental when you're looking to try and position yourself strongly for that late game action. Threats and Trashy, definitely a pretty big hiccup in their plan. Threats gonna be forced to try and play for the reboot here. But when you're so much later to zone than everybody else, you have to expect that you are likely going to get held just outside of that edge of zone. So it's definitely going to be an uphill battle for what they're currently facing throughout the duration of lobby number 2 here. Meanwhile, Ackerman and Edgy, they've got a little bit of damage above that surge threshold, but not enough for them to truly feel comfortable just yet.
Back on over to Iamzo and Tayson as things continue to progress for the worse here. More damage, starting to gap themselves from the other duos here. Out comes the Nitro. They have to make a move. The decision's being called out. Fight the duo underneath them. We'll find out if this is the right move here shortly. Zooks and Bacon back against the wall also need this as well, so both sides very much getting exactly what they need. The solution is right in front of them, but can you step up to the task? Zooks and Bacon are in for a monumental one, as I would never want to fight against Tayson, let alone paired up with Iamzo on the same region. One down. Will it be the second? They found what they needed to get the damage in. They ease up the gas pedal here shortly, but I'm not sure if that's the right move, as Iamzo plays defensively there. Tayson gets punished again. That's the second tag now for him.
Bacon is really holding his own
on
this right side peak. Tayson and Iamzo, it's like you can tell they just want to get this over with, but they're both just losing so much shield for it. A decent amount of their heals having been forcibly expended now. And Bacon, he's actually able to slink on by. But at the same time, even though he was able to hold it down for himself, MDF, I'm not sure that this really left him in a position where he can truly try and make a move for placements. He's doing everything he can to just even catch up to the zone, but he's got nothing to work with here.
Yeah, it's over. He's below the surge. Zone eating him alive right now. Shots are coming in from Tace and the Yamzo. I'm not sure if they did enough tag with enough time for them to get the elimination credit, but neither here nor there. Still 96 above. Rotate in front of them. They have a lot to work with. Meanwhile, plenty of other action happening here as teams are trying to get themselves to a new spot. Peterbot, who's in a very much prime position here, looking towards the backside of zone. You can see finds themselves Chubbs and Skittles on the rotate from the outskirts here. And that jumps them up into the 3 elimination tier, which is very good.
Way up above. Rotate by Miro and Pink. Claimed a box for the time being, but the Nuka-Cola, that is a valuable resource that Miro is going to end up losing here. Box fight taking place. Tace and Yamzo, they definitely didn't have the loot that they were hoping for after that exchange at Shipwreck Shallows, and now Miro Pink getting all the benefits because of it. 1 elimination pickup here onto Tace means that Yamzo is going to be forced to try and play for placements from this point on. And when you're working as a solo MDF in this kind of situation where you're having to move up some slight elevation as well, very difficult to not find yourself getting lobby focused in the process.
Yeah, I agree. Getting yourself in a good spot so you don't get focused out is, you know, part of the game here. And with this high elevation starting to take place right now, Clix and Vino are going to be one of the first to go in and position themselves on this slight lip of the cliff, but the zone pulls ever so further towards the east here. One of the only ones here on the southern portion, though. Shouldn't be too much of a difficult rotate if they move here shortly. Out goes NPen. On goes Clix, and now Vino and Clix find themselves at the very, very end here. The last team to move now. They weren't punished. And it works out.
Little bush for coverage as well. Dignitas, boys caught in the crossfires here. Cooper, Kanata trying to do what they can. But they've got a clean knock now onto Paco. That's going to be an easy finish for the full elimination credit. Kanata's rocking too, but we did see Paco manage to escape at the last minute there. So Cooper actually going to make sure that Vorteca can't actually go any further. Excuse me, but still a really nice double elimination finish there for Kanata, and Cooper is going to ensure that they're going to be in a much better loot situation and builds. And they're going to need the material more than anything, because this south zone pulling over Mount Olympus can be vicious with the elevation changes.
Yeah, this is a huge swing in their favor right now. Not only, of course, for the points right now, but they were desperately close to being below the surge, so 2 eliminations at least gives them a little more room to work with. Meanwhile, we look away to follow some action, and Peterbot just catches wind of more teams in his vicinity, and Pump is going to be one of the first to fall. Likely followed up by others, as he is just adding air to the fire on the other side, really stoking the flames there for other teams. But what do we have here? We have Aviv and Booga on the move right now. 4 eliminations, much bigger game for them this time around. They're making up for lost time from the previous game so far.
Hard not to be paranoid at this point as well. You never know when a team is going to Flowberry Fizz. Crackback Jr. straight on top of your current location, like what we saw take place just now for Miro and Pink, but they were definitely wary. They caught wind. They know Booga and Aviv are trying to challenge them currently. A little bit of box fight action taking place, but doesn't seem to be netting any end results that Booga and Aviv are after. Almost seems as though they might look to resume this exchange a little bit later on, maybe as this next zone pool takes place. But Kanata and Cooper, one more time, still staying strong in their current position. And they might be able to take advantage of Oliver OG and Craze, who seem to be a little bit preoccupied, but trying to take some peeks towards some of those teams more located on the low ground.
Here we are in the final stretch now as we jump into the top 20. Big placement points are going to be earned here for every elimination that falls thereafter. Let's see it. Vino and Clicks also in the end game right now. Is the first showing that we've seen from them. Dominant qualifier performances, however, a slow start here on the semi stage. Can they make up for it? This is their time here and now. We know that they've been very much likely securing those forecast towers. They have the data, they have the insight that they need downloaded and ready. Can they put it to best use? Let's see it. Peterbot, 4 eliminations right now. This time we're watching it live in the flesh here. Taking apart Tyler. Eyes set on the prize here, but they skip past him onto the front side of zone. We're seeing almost a new strategy out of Peterbot and Boyo. Instead of playing so recklessly, it's almost like they've decided to reel it in and really play for the championship title here as they're trying to gear up for the grand finals.
Peterbot may be understanding that they need a refresh for their material count before they want to fully challenge that high ground position, and they may have just found it. Boyo and Peterbot, the Nitro Splash coming out, and the way they're looking up, have to expect it's only a matter of time before they actually head to the high ground themselves. All the while, Kanata doing what he can to just cling on a little bit longer, wants every single placement that he can find, just hoping maybe he can pull away with something fantastic, but it's going to be difficult from that solo position.
You saw from the camera shot there, that really gives you a perspective of what's going on here. We're hovering up and over this mountain and then down the valley. Very difficult terrain to progress through. This is why the crash pads are so critical right here and now. But Baka and Pars officially find themselves a little too high, and just as I'm calling it out, they get targeted out, but luckily they won't be taking any fall damage. They were very much prepared for what was to come, and they're starting to run out of material up top. Meanwhile, Vino and Clicks, for some reason, under the focus of the mid-ground and high-ground teams here, they have to decide whether or not they want to make the commitment, but instead, Rapid makes a decision for them, takes Vino, puts him into the deep end, and finishes the deal there. Clicks now left by himself here, but still a top 10 here, one step closer to more and more placement points that they desperately needed.
Veno just was not expecting Rapid to be hunched up in that secondary height box by himself. Peterbot even going to be able to take full advantage, pick off Rapid the moment that he tries to go for Veno's body for that refresh, but at the same time, again, Peterbot as a solo lost Boyo along the way. So the high ground control, this might actually play very favorably currently if Baka and Pars can continue to hold on to it, because everyone else's material count so low. Clicks a singular build left to his name, make that none, trying to use these pre-existing builds to his advantage, but he is running every which way, and there's bodies behind every single one of these walls. He can't break through. Miro with the final shutdown onto Clicks.
That's all right, you saw him make the edit there. He was trying to catch him in. Kanata, also one of the few left on the front side of zone by himself. Baka jumps in and finds Booga, and it is just chaos unfolding right now. Shots being exchanged everywhere. Baka very much hurt, barely holding on at this time here in the game. Is there anything else from his teammate? I'm not too sure, but what's left of the teams in the game here are all very much damaged. Bryson Bolts are extremely hurt. And on high ground, you have Miro in the mid layer, out of mats here, so he's forced to go down. And then you have Baka right above all of this, waiting to seize the moment. Miro puts a little bit of a distraction in, the mats come down, but is that enough to give Bryson company the chance? Here it is. Baka jumps down, and in the end, Bolts and Bryce do it. They pull through. 5 elims in a Victory Royale sends them straight to the grand finals.
And the timing just could not have been any better, because every single one of those players had absolutely 0 white heals to work with. MDF, it was exclusively down to who could survive those final moments the best. And duos typically going to shape up a little bit better than the solo, but have to respect Baka and Pars for maintaining the high ground as well as they did for so long.
Yeah, take a look at those final moments one more time from Bolts' perspective. Bryce's look. They go up, they target the high ground, they take down Miro, and then break the builds. And it was only a matter of time there. It was still a very valiant effort, right? Everyone was extremely damaged. One step in the storm and you would fall, but Bolt and Bryce do it again, and they pick up the win here on the FNCS stage and send themselves to grand finals for game number 2. So an excellent performance there, Taco. We expect nothing less from our pro players. So with that, give us a short minute, and we'll be right back.
What's going on, Fortnite fam? Welcome back to the FNCS. We just wrapped up game number 2, and this was gone over to Bolt and Bryce, who took it down to the wire there. And again, against Baka by himself, they just had to lock it down. It was a wild one, but they got themselves a spot going to the grand finals next week. Vivid, that's gotta feel amazing.
What the heck happened in game number 2? This entire endgame was just filled with like a bunch of solos, and it looked so good. Baka and Pars up on the high ground, but the flank came in and they got so damaged. But then Bryce, Bolt, kind of like the same story actually as game number 1 if we think about it. From the low ground, just a healthy duo down there who's been fending it off for quite some time. And eventually the high ground team, no resources left to kind of fight them off in that strong low ground position. Bryce and Bolt take game number 2.
Bryce and Bolt have, especially in last major where they got 6th place, I believe, have just time and time again proven themselves to be like one of the top 10 teams. I really like their drop spot this season. It's over around the Dumpenhausen is what it's called. But they do have one of the towers there, one of the forecast towers that has a potential percentage of spawning, and they definitely use it anytime they can. They actually kind of stole it away from Re and Ritual, and it's really worked out for them. And we can see right here, Bryson Bolts once again going into the grand finals, and I can't wait to see if they get another top 10 performance.
I like it. I like it. Okay, let's take it to the standings. I want to see how things are starting to shape up, right? Again, we only have 5 games today, so we're almost reaching that halfway point. As we start to look at some of these stats, and again, if you're just tuning in, you're seeing the 1,000 points up there at the top. That just means they're going on to grand finals. They got themselves a victory royale. They don't have to play anymore until next weekend. But look at these numbers, right? Down to 8th place, Kanata and Cooper starting to break into the triple digits.
Yeah, I mean, no surprise there to see Kanata and Cooper doing well. Let's not forget, this is a team already qualified for the Global Championship, so we'll see them there. But yeah, I just love watching Kanata and Cooper play, especially throughout the Cash Cup yesterday. I saw an amazing solo clutch out of Kanata where he was using those Crash Pad Juniors, and it just seems like usually when I watch a Kanata and Cooper game, it's usually around this 9th, 10th zone mark where it's like, okay, their mats are looking a little low, and then they just make an incredible play. And you can see like a minute later, 30 seconds later, so many builds to work with. They're always so good at finding a refresh, and that's kind of how they like to play their end games.
Yeah, and not only are their end games special, but their early and mid games are as well. This duo has to be one of the most innovative duos that we have in all of Fortnite. Whether that's Storm Surge, whether that's sneaking up on players and trying to get them, they've always been innovative. And during the Cash Cups, we saw them do what? Not necessarily innovative, but for that Storm Surge situation, having a player down by triple cacti and just rotating those heals on top of them to get that Storm Surge. So, I mean, Kanata and Cooper, clearly they are an incredible duo, and that right there is definitely going to be leading them into at least a top 20, but I want to see that victory royale from them.
I think we all do, right? Like, let's just get them right into the grand finals. Let's get them their reserve seat on the bus. It's fine. Another duo I want to see make it to grand finals, obviously, Benno and Clicks, right? We would love to see these guys go through, and we kind of got to remember they're still trying to get themselves a spot to globals, right? So this is going to be a very big next 2 weeks for them. They just have to make it to grand finals. That's all. We can then play from there.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I haven't really seen Clicks and Veto go for high ground all that much so far, seemingly. I'm not really sure what's going on with that, if they kind of switched up the strategy right there, because we just saw that they were actually playing pretty low. But maybe some of their high ground takes just haven't ended up working out so far. But I was expecting to see them, pushing for that high ground just a little bit more, or at least secure it in one of these first 2 games.
You definitely saw a little peek right there from Clicks checking out high ground, but unfortunately, obviously, he got eliminated, so he wasn't able to do anything with that. But I think really between this duo that they're a lot more patient and they're just waiting for the right opportunity. And from the looks of it, that opportunity just hasn't been there exactly, and I can appreciate that from Clicks and Vino, especially when what we've seen from Clicks earlier on in the year of how aggressive he takes heights. I don't think it's an issue that they haven't controlled height yet. They still have 3 more games to go to do that.
Yeah, and you can just see even with that, last game, right, jumping up 30 places. So I would love to believe these guys are at least locked in for tomorrow's upper bracket, right? But like you're saying, I want to see a victory royale, right? Do they have what it takes to push it to that point? One thing we can probably discuss when we come back, but the difference of format, right? If we get a victory royale, we just go to grand finals, but right now it feels like they're playing more for consistency, right? They don't necessarily care about that spot because they make it to Sunday, they play consistent, they're going anyway, right? So a lot of things, and we'll discuss this when we come back because I'm getting word it is time for the games right here, right now. So again, 5 games. This is game number 3. We are almost at that halfway point. Victory royale is what we want eyes on. All right, with that being said, casters, please take it away.
Yeah, that's right. Your chances at grand finals are starting to run thin here. You're looking at it all unfold right before your eyes, ladies and gentlemen. And you know what? I want to give another little hats off to Bryce. It's about time we just give him credit. He has taken so many victories in the FNCS settings now, especially as he start gearing up into the late stages of the tournament. It's just overall impressive, Taco.
Yeah, now Bryson Bolts just need to get those same victory royales and grand finals, but that's a story for next week. What I'm really excited about currently, MDF, is the fact that Scented actually announcing he's going to be landing at Dumpenhazen now with Hound, and they're going to actually be coached by Bolts. So when you're looking at the duo that just had success from their uncon drop spot, now giving you, I guess, essentially the recipe for success, some good things could happen here for Hound and Scented in lobby number 3.
Yeah, I do think that's interesting, right? Scented is obviously someone with exceptional skill, but Hound has been up at the top. And not only that, before he switched duos, he finished in 10th for the second qualifier here, showing us exactly what he is made of. He is made of elite skill, and he's been around the scene for a long time. So let's see what's going to happen here for game number 3 now. All right, so game 3 is here. We're going to kick things off, and Taco, you just dropped a little bombshell on us, though. If Bolts truly is going to be taking Scented through their drop, could that be the game-winning strategy for them to get them at least into an endgame conversation? We've seen that endgame by no means is anyone's free reign. It is difficult depending on where things end. Last game was a mountain zone. Anything can happen. However, a little more favor. It is going to lend ourselves to an interesting story. But first, this drop right here, the battle continues this time. Mixin and Blaha a little bit more standoffish as they have the center, not the high ground.
But Mixin and Blaha back to tried and true. Last lobby, we saw them take Quanti and Yapko by surprise when they chose to contest here with Research Rock, and now Quanti, after having been brought incredibly low, it's still gonna be Blaha applying some pressure, but does Blaha know that Yapko just kind of crouch walking around, trying to see if he can reposition? He might have an excellent flank opportunity here onto Blaha or Mixin. You can hear those feet stomping around above him on the ceiling, but it is all about patience here for Yapko. Doesn't want to reveal his position just yet. He is looking for the prime opportunity to take out either Mixin or Blaha, whoever happens to come through this doorway first.
Trying to just reveal himself as Blaha jumps down and start farming some mats there. So for sure, he's opened himself up to some line of fire, but nothing happening just yet. I almost wish Yapko would have picked up that hand cannon. He probably would have had the opportunity there, but it is what it is as things start to slow down. Here's a place that isn't settling at all. Grim Gates, Batman Booga, first off, walked his way through Okis, and then an even exchange here on what was left of Convict and Duo, and there you have it. We're gonna call it vacant gates at this point. There isn't a team left.
That is a crazy closure to Grimgate in lobby number 3, though, MDF. The fact that literally nobody prospered from that triple contest taking place, but hey, sometimes that's just the way the cookie crumbles, and those are the risks that are going to be involved. Rigby and Mordecai, if they don't win this exchange, they might find themselves getting fired from lobby number 3, but Cam and Aminish just trying to see if they can get away. No, Rigby, Mordecai, they want to give chase, but their crash pad gets shot out before given the opportunity. Nitro Splash gonna come out instead because Rigby, he's got to get off this roof. He needs to close the distance. He only has an SMG to work with. He's got to get close range with it, but it's just not going to be the case. They're going to actually be forced to let this one go. They just don't have the loadout that they need to give pursuit here onto Aminish and Cam. And the Grand Glacier now proving to be a little bit more difficult to conquer.
Take a look at this replay right here from Baka and Pars. How it all unfolded. This is how Okis was taken down, and like we said, shortly after that, Bucky as well. So this is just, you know, action lending its way out of the Grim Gate, spilling into the fields. Baka and Pars, 2 eliminations now because of that quick finish. Still holding on to their Grim Gate dashes as well, so they'll be able to take those into their early game here shortly.
Noticing some things there for Pars and Baka at the ship-it station. But most importantly of all, they just have so many forms of mobility surrounding them. 2 flaming boost tubes, a launch pad off on the dock, and then also the possibility of either the weapons bunker, a couple of forecast towers that they could potentially look to circle around towards. The world's seemingly their oyster for the time being, as Baka and Pars, they might go hunting for some buried treasure a little bit later on. See if they can get some better shield potion options. Kanata and Cooper all the while just holding it down outside of the Nitrodrome, waiting to get their surge base online before they actually opt to start trying to look for those tag exchanges. They know that those slurp cacti are going to be the ultimate beneficial factor there when they're looking for that tag damage.
What's happening here? Little rat play from Noisy. He's just sneaking his way around, trying to work his way towards the reboot van. Reciprocal and G-Monster want nothing of it. They'll likely be sitting on the card here of Noisy's duo mate here at the Rebel Roost, and Shirley is where they got the pickup, so they're gonna go ahead and play the lowest of low tactics, and that's just sit on the card for as long as possible. Noisy probably has to figure out that this is not going to be worth his time and effort anymore, and likely play this game on by himself if he wants to have anything good come of it.
The craziest part, though, is that this might not even be worthwhile for Reciprocal or G-Money either, MDF, because if they can't get this elimination quick enough, if Noisy actually decides to sit and wait it out, but gotta maybe take that back. Seems as though Noisy, no sound being made. It's giving him a little bit of confidence here to try and press towards his teammates' reboot card, but now Reciprocal, G-Money, they're gonna pop out of the woodwork. And just like that, Noisy trying to do what he can to bail out of this situation, but this is the moment that Reciprocal and G-Money waited so patiently for. They don't want to let it slip away. They know just how necessary this surge damage is going to be for their late game strategy if they can make it there. Definitely had some struggles in the mid game because of how far they've had to rotate in general. The first two lobbies today, and Reciprocal eats a big tag in the process, but will find that elimination onto Noisy. So a slight profit currently for G-Money and Noisy, and now it's all about working their way down from Rebels Roost and joining the rest of the teams in zone.
Yeah, I think it's really about the point gain at this point, because you gotta be at least in a top 25 if you're not in a winning position at some point or another before the tournament concludes. And with game 3, your chances to do so are starting to run thin. Mason and Walker's very much in that same conversation as they're going against Curly and Raze, who hasn't earned a dime this game either. This is outside the shipwreck. A lot of teams actually engaging in their own fights nearby, so everyone very much focused on their own efforts here. Cactus on the control by Curly and Raze, which tells us time is on the side for the team who's in control here. And, you know, all in all, even if this doesn't end up, you know, finishing in some points, I mean, what we are watching is a lot of surge being generated, right? If you can get trades and still bounce back comfortably, that's what's at hand. But Walkers and Mason actually need this elimination, though. I'm going to back off of that statement because they don't have extra heals to work with. They've lost control of the Cactus at this point, so we need to see them press in like yesterday. There we go. Mason jumps in, makes the edit, finds a huge tag onto Curly, and they can't allow them to recuperate at this point.
You can see Walkers wants it. He's trying to press forward, but doesn't want to be overly ambitious about it either. He knows that Slurp Cactus is currently under Raze and Curly's control. He also spots out Raze, trying to apply some pressure from overhead. So Walker's going to be forced to reassess the situation here. Decide, do I allow Curly to just depend on that Slurp Cactus healing up his white health there, along with the shields eventually, but Raze one more time doing exactly what he needs to try and cover his duo, but no, maybe a split too far. Raze catches wind of Walkers and Mason trying to double charge in front of Curly's wall there, and it will buy the duo a little bit of time. Yeah, they really wanted to just forcibly take that position. Still a slight health advantage, at least as far as Mason is concerned. Looking for another shot onto Curly, won't be able to connect. This left side peek is definitely difficult to go for, but finally, Mason and Walkers, just when you think it's gonna turn in their favor, Mason caught off guard from above, but it's an even exchange. Raze goes down in the process. Now it's all up to Curly versus Walkers. The 1v1 could ultimately determine which team is actually going to be able to walk away from this one. For better or worse here, and Curly, no control of the Slurp Cactus. And seemingly his last shield potion to work with as well.
Walker's pushing forwards now as well, trying to get inside. Remember, he still has that Grimgate dash. Anything can happen here, but Curly gets the first tag now, and it is just even on both sides, but Walker's with the bigger tag there, seals the deal. But remember, he did lose Mason. The zone has moved on, and sure, he can pick up everything that was earned here, but there's no extra heals. There's nothing to walk away with other than his wounds here, and he will have to play for the pickup somewhere close by. Either way, we'll find out if it was worth it. That's a lot of damage to take here this late into the early game as we're starting to approach the middle of the timeline here. But Pretobot and Pollo coming out from their upgrades here and now, surrounded by a number of different duos.
Yeah, but one thing I can't help but keep in mind there is that, sure, Walkers can probably tank a little bit more storm damage because of that Slurp Cactus nearby. Granted, we'll have to get back to that narrative in a moment because Victor and Paper currently in a fight for their lives up against Blaha and Mixon. Pretty massive box fight taking place too. Wouldn't be surprised if this happened to draw some third-party attention in the process, so Victor's got to be careful. Got to make sure that he's maintaining that spatial awareness of who might be approaching from behind because Lawrence, Ozone, they are steadily closing the gap. Paper and Victor are relatively split as well. They're trying to get separate side angles from above onto Mixon and Blaha, but it could end up working against them. But fortunately, Victor seems to have spotted out Lawrence and Ozone rotating from just a little bit into his blind side. But now, Victor, Paper, they've got to make the choice. Ultimately, is this really the fight that we want to keep trying to pursue? Especially when we know that a third-party team is bearing down on us.
Yeah, I'm not too sure Victor actually knows if Lawrence is there or not. Like, he's looking back, but he didn't throw walls down, so I'm a bit confused. But Lawrence and company seems to feel like they were on edge because Victor was peeking that way, and they actually move out first. So I'm a little bummed we don't get to see the conclusion of Victor and Paper versus Blah and Mixon, because Victor and Paper, although they've been very successful, we haven't actually seen them fight such a strong duo this early in the game. They've taken on some more, you know, not so familiar names, if you will. But either way, this is why they keep making their strides towards the final stages. They play smart. They take the battles they know that they can win and move on otherwise.
But what this really all comes back to is the fact that these teams, they're willing to spend a little bit more time in the storm. They're getting some damage off in the process as well. And you think, wow, 1-2 eliminations, you would expect it to be in their favor. But because of these south pulling zones, again, MDF, keep in mind, early on, lobby number one, kind of just highlighting the fact with the help of Prodigy Analytics that we are seeing a lot higher numbers as far as what the storm surge damage thresholds are needing for zone 7, 8, 9, and 10 specifically. And we've even seen the two highest storm surge damage thresholds of the season so far in those specific zones take place. So when you think about the teams like Walkers that are kind of just left in those solo situations, if you don't have a ton, even if you feel like you have a ton of storm surge damage built up, you probably still won't have enough to actually maintain through that mid to late game. The only team that's really been consistently pulling this one off, I think, would be Peterbot and Pollo.
Take a look at this. Peterbot and Pollo actually caught wind of Clicks moving up to the Rift Island, maybe by himself. But Vino surely has to be given a call out as he has the side angle here that there's a team underneath. And Clicks is eyeing up the launch pad here, trying to keep control of it, and he doesn't feel safe. Neither does Vino with the situation at hand, and off they go to meet with one another here. Up Peterbot and Pollo go to the high ground, and that's how quickly you can get sent right back to the lobby if you let your guard down. Look at how fast Clicks is with the reaction there. He's 65 body tag. Exactly what he's looking for. This is perfect for them to get into this exchange here if they need these tags. And there just isn't anyone in sight. It's almost as if we're watching a zone war, just a standoff between the two.
Click
Oh my-
says, "Oh wow, dude,
I
Peterbot is
was
beaming."
like pre-calling that one because I've seen the clips. Peterbot can just handle this spray so well.
That is nasty work by Peterbot, and I was just about to compliment Clicks because he's really had a glow up as well as far as his Hunter's DMR game is concerned. I think when we first saw, BloodX kind of harping on Clicks needing to get a little bit more of accuracy access when utilizing that weapon for search strategies, and the position that Clicks has been in time and time again today, I think it has just been a relatively unlucky sequence of events for the first two lobbies as far as Clicks and Venom are concerned, because you do have to keep in mind, throughout the duration of this season, they have actually been one of the teams that have looked to not only take over, but kind of hold high ground the longest. So the fact that we haven't really seen them be able to establish that control here today, I think, again, it just all kind of funnels back to the circumstances that they've had to deal with in their early and mid-game sequences. Lobby number 1, we saw Clicks and Venom kind of exchanging solo circumstances. Lobby number 2, they were trying to make a play, I think, from secondary height, but then just get bamboozled in the secondary height mid layer by Rapid, who was operating as like a stealth solo. So it almost feels like a matter of time before they actually find the prime opportunity to strike here today. And I think a lot of the public perception surrounding them has been that they have definitely been surfacing as a really strong duo that if they just find that stride, that momentum will take them all the way.
Just as a reminder right now, what we're looking out for is the Victory Royale. The win will send you to the Grand Finals. It'll skip you past the Saturday and Sunday of games that we have coming up this weekend, and it'll send you straight to the finals stage. However, if you fall short of that, top 25 is that next cutoff. So yes, it is very important that you remain consistent throughout what's left of these couple of rounds. Otherwise, you will not see uppers bracket number 2, and you get sent down to the lower bracket. So there is very much a lot on the line here, and that's why when you start looking at the updates, you start looking at the standings, any of those teams that won, they're no longer in the lobby. That's why we have 48 teams playing right now. So for Yamzo and Tayson, they're fighting for just that here. King Cirque is going to be one of the ones to fall here. They're still 50 below, though. Great tag from Yamzo there to follow up, but you can see the Surge is very much active on this duo here. They're sitting on a plethora of heals now from the eliminations, but when the Surge is active, man, it claims damage, and it claims it so fast. We really don't have time to sit around.
Look at his ammo.
When the Surge and the Storm is working together, and yeah, you're right. The ammo is low now, too.
This is just chalked right now for Yamzo and Tayson. They do have some heals to try and work with, but they are just barely above that damage threshold now, sitting at 33. And they've got quite a ways to go with a decent amount of traffic surrounding them. And Yamzo, more than ever, I mean, he's only got 6 shots to operate with here, MDF. And granted, if you expect accuracy from anyone, I think Yamzo is a fair target to call out. So unfortunate with the crash pad there, but that's gonna be the final one now from Yamzo as he continues to try and push forward. These two are definitely some high caliber players, but at the same time, even the best would really struggle from their current position. If they can turn this one around though, MDF, that has got to be a massive confidence boost for the remainder of this lobby.
Yeah, I think they're good now. I think they have their self, very much situated. If they just can survive the incoming shots, I do think they at least have some footing here. There's a lot of teams nearby them, so opportunity should, reveal itself here shortly. Muzz and Epic Wills, one of the duos up above, but look at all this metal here. This is a sign that teams are trying to base down, but they don't want to let that happen. Yamzo goes into the box, but it seems like Tayson was ready, and so was Freeze there too, so both sides are exchanging. But in the end, the damage was done, and it does look like Tayson at least comes out on the top, but not before Yamzo was fully finished there. And look, they got the damage, he's got the extra heals. This is going to come down to Tayson just playing a miraculous game now at this point, which he's very much capable of. This is someone who has won solo titles as an individual, he is arguably, you know, amongst the greats of the great, especially on the European region, absolutely on the global stage. So we have a true chance here. It was, I would say that was a worth it push.
For sure. This is definitely looking a lot more like a salvageable situation than what they were just in, especially when you consider that they had every single factor working against them prior to that refresh. Tayson, though, understanding the fact that he's not going to be able to lead the charge as far as trying to look to control the front side of zone. He's probably going to be looking to operate a little bit more from that backside of zone position. And you don't necessarily want to be the last one to go for your rotate because you don't want to get picked off by some of those teams that are going to try and situate themselves in those mid-ground tiers, but still, as you already called out, at least a situation for Tayson to definitely clutch up some nice placements, put himself in Yamzo in a solid spot to try and maintain that top end of the leaderboard position so they can ensure that they're still in upper bracket for day 2, if anything.
Take a look at this, Mixon and Baja switching up the angles here as they come across some builds, reutilizing the crash pad that was placed below them, and all these little things start to add up to allow this team to make their way into the zone. Into the box they go, though. They recognize there's some weak wood here. We have a chance to do something big, but Blaha unfortunately wasn't at the hip of Mixon, and they lose an opportunity now, and that might just be the downfall of this duo. Surely mistakes were made because they weren't together there. Shadow and Virgo are going to be the ones that come out with the advantageous position now. They pick up what's left of the team. I mean, they didn't deliver much, but it's still better than what they had before. And even with that refresh, Shadow and Virgo are very much in a scrappy situation here, as is the team that's pushing into them. So they're gone. Perfect time to hit the rotate there with the flaming hoop into the storm. Shadow goes all the way around. I wonder if Virgo can even keep up with this move right here. He is. That was impressive.
That's a nice wraparound tactic, and they're also in a much less congested section of the zone, but they know they're definitely going to have to keep things moving as everything starts to draw ever closer here at Pleasant Piazza. Mira and Pink have staked out a decent amount of spacing for themselves. Some good builds, kind of taking note of the high ground. Looks like they want to see if they can maybe take over the high ground, but crash pad right past it, onto the other side of this hill here. We'll be able to identify some isolated spacing, and Tayson from out of nowhere punishing Ackerman, turning his back, but the favor is returned. Tayson will eventually find himself getting eliminated in the process. Still a solid run, though, considering where we saw Tayson and Yam just start this one off.
Yeah, tough spot to be in. You make one of those edits, you can't grab the wall, but let's jump in with Peterbot and Boyo, who find Epic Whale, putting Muzz in a bad situation here. He throws his teammate back, but now Peterbot and Boyo are putting all of their effort and focus on into him. They're looking to see if they can actually get their secured elimination. They do get it, but through the hands of another duo, so that's going to tell them everything they need to know about Muzz exiting on stage left there. The wide shot reveals that the only team up top is Noxy and Crispy right now, but someone sneaks from behind them. Yeah, this is some weird terrain right now. So Boog and Aviv actually give up the high ground completely to make their first rotate. Shadow and Virgo from the outskirts position find themselves on top, but they don't have a lot of mats. This is really not something they can afford to do right now. They will have to fight a team here.
Like that from Shadow, though, spots out the crash pad. He's gonna opt to just recycle it from team beforehand, but ultimately ends up being his demise. Ran right into the hands of Peterbot and Pollo, tarping things through on the low ground. And this is an aggressive build out as well from Peterbot. He's got that mythic hand cannon, the gatekeeper shotgun. He is all about trying to apply some pressure from the low ground for the time being. And Peterbot and Pollo, they've actually got a lot of control here in the low ground. They're actually going to cut off Lawrence and Ozone from trying to make that rotate out of the backside.
I do find it interesting. There's really not many teams down in that ultimate low ground, as Peterbot and Pollo are just cleaning up house there. On the high ground, the very same can be said. It seems like all the action right now is in this middle pack right here. A very, very congested mid-ground layer happening right now. Vino and Click slowly inching their way on up, trying to see what they can find. But it's up and over a little lip and a mountain there, and they get themselves off the low ground now. and back into a secondary elevated position. They look up, they see there's a single tarp up top. There's an opportunity here. Vino, no stranger to start focusing into the high ground. We're wondering, could the opportunity present themselves to go for it? It seems like now things are starting to finally connect, but first, you gotta fight your way through. Rigby's gonna be the first to fall here. They get the mats too, but another duo nearby.
Just barely takes that final tick from the Storm, and now clicks. He was trying to make a play through that mid-ground layer, but it's gonna get cut off. So unfortunate that Veno just took that big shot from Rigby despite getting the elimination. And now Peterbot Pollo, one more time, trying to see if they can replicate some high ground success here. Ritual gonna be one of the first to fall to them. 8 eliminations in total already here for Peterbot and Pollo. And Peterbot just tarping so aggressively through the front side of this zone. Rise now sitting at the top though. Cam and Aminis trying to see if they can make quick work of him, but this could pose to be very problematic here. Agers with that split position actually gonna help Rise in terms of being able to establish their turf on the high.
We're really seeing the early implications of the crash pads being in play, why teams aren't really going for high ground early, because all of a sudden you can be contested for that position. So Peterbot and Pollo playing for the low ground, trying to opt to do things a little bit differently, has really played into their favor. You can see the results of the eliminations are there to show for it as well, as they are the kings of the crypts right now. Pressure coming in from up above, team down low. Peterbot eliminates the threat. That was Bacon's here in the low ground position, and now it's all focused up above here. The medallions swap out to try to get their regens going here. And I think Agers and Rise made a mistake. They've given them a little too much time to gather themselves, to reload their weapons, and put up a fight here. So this is going to be all or nothing here coming shortly.
Agers and Rise both gonna drop at the same time. They're trying to see if they can cause a little bit of chaos here towards the low, but Agers will successfully hold tight. And Rise, he was able to play that distraction factor just long enough. An excellent final showdown though between these two powerhouse duos, and sure enough, it's crazy to think that Rise and Agers were still able to turn that one into their favor, because for a moment there, MDF, you're right, they did take a quick pause that almost netted a success there for Peterbot and Pollo.
Luckily, Agers and Rise did enough to get it done. It wasn't pretty, it was a little scrappy, but they got the job done in the air in their taco. And just like that, Agers and Rise are sending themselves straight to the grand finals. I mean, I liked what they managed to complete.
Yeah, I definitely can't ever feel bad about that one. Doesn't matter how it's done, doesn't need to be pretty. At the end of the day, MDF, a ticket into grand finals is a ticket into the grand finals. So congratulations to Rise and Agers pulling off with that one. And we'll see what happens in lobby number 4 as we come back from this quick break.
Global champions on.
What's going on, Fortnite fam? That was game number 3 of the FNCS. This is just day number 1 of the semifinals. Agers and Rise taking it to Peterbot and Pollo. And once again, that moment we think, is it over? Is this the moment? Is this when Peterbot and Pollo qualify? Well, Agers and Rise said, listen, no. This was without a doubt probably one of the craziest micro little things that happen in this 2v2 Vivid. I mean, at one point we had High Ground looking to throw a crash pad down to possibly displace them. Dude, it was wild.
Yeah, I mean, a crazy 2v2, but I'm not gonna lie, the 2v2 to actually end the game was nothing in comparison to what was going on for that high ground take around 11th zone. We're typically used to seeing. It was Peterbot and Pollo crash pad directly up, and I'm like, oh, okay, they have play. And then there's 3 teams above them further up. I'm like, what is going on? Somehow Ager and Rise come out on top of the high ground and close the game from that position.
Yeah, Agers and Rise fighting Cam and Aminish for that height when we thought that Peterbot had it. Definitely probably was what led them to eventually their success and their victory royale. So big shots to Rise and Agers. One of the duos that kind of got split apart after, obviously, it used to be Zone Rise and it used to be Booga and Agers. So to see them be able to get their ticket into the grand finals after having their duo mates kind of break up with them and reform, I love to see it.
Yeah, they're kind of trying to prove themselves a little bit, right? Or at least that feels like that's how everyone on the outside looking in is hey, are you guys is this duo working? And I feel like for us, that's a question we have a lot when we look around the landscape, right? Is all these new duos popping up. How do they perform? Well, look, they got a ticket to the grand finals. And as Taco would say, winning's winning. So they are good to go. As we get ready to look at the standings, we're now only over the halfway point, right? Only 2 games left to go. If you're just tuning in, we love that you're here. What's up? This is Fortnite. We got 2 games left to go. We're looking for a victory royale or to stay in the top 25. So far, games have been very crazy, Vivid.
I mean, yeah, especially when you take a look at how the Storm Surge is actually playing out. I mean, we've seen teams multiple times, high profile teams as well, just struggling with Storm Surge, and they're forced to kind of make plays. I know Tayson and Yamza were one of those teams that game. So Storm Surge may be catching a lot of the teams off guard so far, but I think something that isn't necessarily a surprise is to see Peterbot and Pollo with the most eliminations. I mean, Kelly, what is this duo known for? It's those eliminations.
I mean, we saw Peterbot tweeted out a clip just recently. The absolute crazy damage, the far range beams shooting into the bush. I mean, Peterbot and Pollo are just unstoppable when it comes to that aggression. But I feel like we're seeing a bit of a repeat from day 1 of the semifinals last major, where Peterbot and Pollo, everyone thought they were going to get the first victory royale, and it looked like that was going to be the case today. But they wait till the final game of the day to get that victory royale. And honestly, maybe Peterbot and Pollo, they want some practice. They want to work, because this is one of the strongest lobbies we've seen, except for Cash Cups. Why not get a few extra games in?
Yeah. Can't go wrong with a little bit more practice. But honestly, the thing that's scary for me, right, is that Peterbot and Pollo have kind of been used to kind of bullying the lobby off of high ground just because of how mechanical they are. But they're kind of seemingly playing a little bit more strategic, playing some of those low ground layers throughout those first couple of games so far. So adjusting and becoming a little bit more of a strategic duo. I think that makes them even a little bit more scarier.
Bro, you're talking about scary. I mean, you just see them swapping the coin back and forth, while they're building, while they're being shot at. These guys are nuts. And as you saw there in second place for just a moment, a duo that's been kind of relatively quiet that we're not getting to see. I forgot their name. I'm so sorry, but it's been crazy. It's been a very good day of Fortnite. Now, my worry, and actually I wanted to bring this topic up. This is why I forgot, because I just thought about something. Talking about the victory royale versus consistency, right? So obviously, if we get the victory royale, wow, we're done. We just go grand finals. It's cool. It's chill. But if we think of this as grand finals lobbies, right? We win grand finals by being consistent. So though the victory royale might be cool, and it's yeah, if we get a victory royale, it's great. But when in grand finals, you may not even get a victory royale. So how do you guys feel this approach of how do we balance this, right? Do we just send it and go victory royale? Does that work? Does that change up how our duo works now?
I think as we're kind of seeing in the meta develop throughout some of these games, right? A lot of these teams seemingly going for higher ground, whether it be with the Fizz activated plus the Nitro, plus now those recently activated or implemented crash pads kind of sending it up on the high ground. Those wins might be harder to kind of consistently go ahead and find, like you're kind of saying, Zeke. So maybe playing more into the consistency during this meta might be what teams need to do.
I definitely think that Storm Surge is throwing some of our competitive players for a loop, and that might be why we're not seeing as much consistency from some teams. But I mean, these players, just looking at the top 10 lobby list right there, this could be a grand finals lobby. There are absolutely incredible competitors right here. I don't even think that maybe they're necessarily worried about consistency and staying in the upper bracket, although that is preferred. I think that they are just practicing right now. I think that they are playing like this is grand finals, and I think that there's no secret strats. There's no holding back. Right now, they are playing like their life depends on it, and they need to, because that's how they get into the grand finals.
Yeah, and you think grand finals time, only 10 spots going to the global championships. It's only the top 10, and that's what we're looking at. Like, grand finals, let's make it, sure, let's fight for an axe, sure. Let's fight for those 10 spots, right? So much on the line. But as we continue to discuss, we are getting word the bus is ready to go. So let's jump back on board with MDF and Taco.
Thanks so much, Zeke, Vivid, and Kelly. And hey, you guys are talking about a game of consistency. Well, one consistent theme throughout the course of our first 3 lobbies today here, MDF, is that the first 3 teams to get victory royales, they all were uncontested. So I don't know if there might be a continuancy factor coming into play here for lobbies 4 and 5, but that's saying quite a lot.
Yeah, we know there's definitely a correlation between being uncontested and just having a better time more often than not. But what we're looking at unfold, especially after that last game, was very interesting. The middle of the map was completely clear. But first, let's jump in here. Game number 4 is ready.
And I like this because, I kind of want to see what you were getting at there, essentially, MDF, because it felt like you were really running away with that thought for a moment.
Yeah, I was looking at the Pleasant Piazza, right? The way the map has continued to develop. When the zone pulled west, all of the teams were east. All of the teams were south. They're leaning towards these cactuses, and for good reason, right? However, it's leaving what's left of the western sides of the map to be completely clear. That's why we saw Clicks, Vino, Peterbot, Boyo, no one in sight when the Rift Island positioned itself up, right, on that western side. And they're also one of the few teams at the top of the standings, right? I think it's very clear that teams that are almost playing a little bit of a different strategy, right, getting away from those generally highly contested areas, are finding a little bit more success, at least if you have the skill, right, to take your one-on-ones and you know, farm your tags effectively.
Yeah, and we're talking about teams with skill. I mean, we're looking at Batman Booga, Rapid, Convict, Vanillas, and this exchange that's consistently been taking place as well here at Grim Gate. Last lobby we saw, it did not benefit anybody. Just a clean wipeout, essentially, of eliminations coming out of the Grim Gate. But Yapko, Quanti with a steep outdrop here at Research Rock, but now it's all about whether or not Yapko can actually follow up with a little bit of pressure here. Some slight farmer is going to come through. Nitro splashes getting thrown out. It's clear that Yapko and Quanti want to take the fight early on, but Mixon and Blaha, they've done an okay job at creating some distance away from where Yapko and Quanti are located. They understand fully that if they want to keep having these late game runs that we've been seeing in the past 2 lobbies from them, well, they've got to make sure they start things off on the right foot here.
We're really seeing how well they know the map, right? Breaking into the bathroom where there's just a little extra brick, a couple extra walls to work with, right? Gives you all the more of a slight advantage at times, right? Especially with the mass in early game, holding the outskirts like this. I just think Mixon and Blaha are the stronger duo right now, and it shows not only in their ability to land, but their ability to, you know, do what they do so far in the post of the landing, right? Here in the early game. So it's looking good. Jumping to Okus and Bucky, it seems like they've learned enough. They've had enough inside the heart of the Grim Gate. They're trying to play the outskirts here. I like this move. However, last game, it did not work out with Pars deciding that they were just going to key them. But let's see. You know, maybe now that they have a little bit more of their footing, they've been alive a bit longer than they have in the previous rounds, that can actually get something going this time around.
And keep in mind also, though, they're kind of hovering this Pleasant Piazza territory, but Bucky and Okis formerly like dropping at restored reels. And so this might be a portion of the map that's maybe just got a little bit more familiarity behind it for them to try and find some more success factors going for them. But yeah, they are going to have to probably deal with the likes of Baka and Pars first and foremost before they can really get the ball rolling. And you can tell when you're sitting at just 4 points, that top 25 of the leaderboard becoming significantly more questionable. I think that for Bucky and Okis, it's a Hail Mary play to just look for that Victory Royale outright.
Yeah, there's only this game and the next one. If you can't get the win, you'll have to get 2 really big games in order to find yourself a top 25. Luckily, there isn't 6 rounds, so one game is going to hold a significant amount of weight, right, in the overall leaderboard here. If you want to make that upper bracket, which essentially is the next big milestone. For someone like Minish and Cam, they just need the win, but these early game fights are extremely critical here because you're not going to find the tags otherwise. It's going to be a lot more difficult if you're one of the teams up towards the north to find fair fights like this because most teams tend to migrate towards those cacti and battle around those in more drawn-out fights.
Rigby and Mordecai as well. When you think about how they even found themselves in the upper bracket in the first place, they had quite a scrappy week 2 on the qualifying stage. And here today, Rigby and Mordecai, they're just trying to see if they can replicate some Victory Royale success. All they need is 1, right? So at the end of the day, it just comes down to focusing on your own gameplay, trying to stay confident in your own abilities, keep that mental fortitude strong as well, regardless of the outcome, as Miro, Pink, bearing down onto Chronic Vanilla's. And Vanilla's just sandwiched between Miro and Pink. Nowhere left to try and escape to. It's a nice 2 elimination count currently for Miro and Pink here at Charon's Crossing. And this is going to be exactly what they're looking for in terms of setting up for their mid-game.
The reason why they're amongst the top, but Bak and Pars, last we tuned in, they were under the effects of the Nitro, rushing their way up the mountain, and you can see that it was all worth it for the results here. They already had Bucky by the time they were chasing out Okis there, and it was just a matter of time, so they continue to farm away at points there, just chipping away, keeping themselves very much afloat inside of this top 25. Noxie and Crisp now in a fight up against Zaire. Noxie has the advantage, he's got the high ground, he's got much more points as well as far as his overall position is concerned. His performance here has been very much decent with Crisp, to say the least. Set of eliminations now can set themselves up for success here. There's another team starting to come on in. If you look at the map, they're moving it really fast as well. They've got the high ground. They're looking down onto what's unfolding here.
This is definitely starting to develop into a bit of a party, though, for all teams involved. Although I'm not sure that this is the kind that you necessarily want an invite to, MDF, as Noxie, Crisp now might be needing to look for their bailout strategy, essentially. They can hear the shots going off. They know, hey, all of these aren't from us. There's somebody else that got involved in the mix, and it's Oliver, OG, and Craze onto the backside of these builds here. Still playing through that low ground position, but Oliver will reposition, trying to go for some side jumps here to see if he can clean off some of the shield cracks that he broke through earlier onto Zaire. And now with the Nitro splashes, double shoulder checks into the walls. Oliver, OG, Craze just narrowly missing out on Zaire the first time, but they won't miss on the second go. 1 elimination so far in their favor, and a strong amount of heals as well. Oliver and Craze, they could look to ultimately clean up house here.
Hey, Oliver didn't care if he had an invite to the party or not. He's breaking down the walls with his shoulder here. He's in the mix right now. Craze and Oliver find their first set of elims. That's not enough, right? They only found just a couple tags. It was a weakened duo as well. So what they came here for was the action, was for the damage. They have the advantage. Look at this. They're going to pop the Nitro once again here. So showing us everything that they're looking to do here.
It's so exciting, though, to really see the way that this duo has continued to evolve. That being Craze and Oliver OG, I think that Oliver OG especially is playing with so much more confidence. And that's not to say that he's not a confident player. Everybody's going to trust in their own ability to some extent, but I think that we have truly seen some really strong synergy between Oliver OG and Craze. You can tell there's a lot of trust in that relationship, and the fact that they choose to bail in that last situation tells me that they got everything they were after. They understand they don't have to keep trying to force that issue. Here at Redline Rig, though, some problems now for Snacky and Magia. They're trying to see if they can get away, but Peterbot Pollo, they are not the type to let their food escape.
Pay attention to how Peterbot's gonna go ahead and look to isolate Snacky right now. Typically, Peterbot and Pollo play a little bit of a split offense, working their ways through two different angles. Almost, again, almost like solos in 1v2s when you watch them take on a team. We're seeing a lot of smart disengages there from Peterbot and Pollo all day. This is different than anything we saw last season. They've been much more contained, I would say, from the way that they play. And it's the results are showing up on the leaderboards, on the standings. Peterbot and Pollo are very much at the top.
They're just going to play the cactuses at this point. They know they continue to try and hover around, but you can see them circulating around those slurp cacti. They're both full shield, full light. Snacky and Magia, though, again, decent job there in terms of their defensive capabilities. And that will cause a little bit of a halt, at least. We saw Peterbot Pollo. I mean, the fact that they're just circling around tells me that they understand, hey, this is a team that we can't just barrel into their boxes and expect success every time.
What are the odds that Re and Ritual take a win today?
With 2 lobbies left, I'm looking at them more for some day 2 victory royales.
Day 2 action, upper bracket for sure, as they're sitting at 85 points. 84 points here. One more Endgame. They'll be surely positioned inside that top 25. What about Clix and Vino? I mean, they play in Forecast Tower. Things haven't quite lined up. We saw Vino leading them to wins before.
Clix and Veno, I think, are kind of in the same fold right now as Re and Ritual, where it just seems to be one slight play that doesn't go their way, and then everything else, it's almost like a dominoes effect, so to say, where once one thing goes wrong, everything starts to fold with it. And I think realistically, these teams, they have the prowess to make that Victory Royale push. It's just they need all of the pieces to line up perfectly, and they haven't been able to create those scenarios yet themselves. But again, with the talent that's involved, I wouldn't be surprised to see either of them find a Victory Royale here in day 1, but I also think that they haven't had that success that they were obviously chasing after so far today.
And we're seeing that a lot from the teams we're tuned in right now. All of these teams are kind of in the middle of the pack right now, in that 80 to 90 points range here. Tayson off to the far side, Iamzo on the high ground. Meanwhile, we jump in with Cooper and Kanata. Cooper and Kanata have had some amazing early games where they find very, very high damage points. However, it hasn't translated into any monstrous amount of eliminations or anything like that, but it has yielded them very good endgames so far. I wouldn't put it past Kanata and Cooper to potentially be up for a Victory Royale now, as there are just slightly less teams in the game. When you win a game, you are done. You're straight to grand finals. Don't have to worry about the rest of the weekends of rounds. You've done what you needed to do.
Keep in mind, though, Kanata and Cooper, they were the epitome of consistency in last season's semifinal. So if anything, I definitely don't anticipate them to be a team that struggles at all as far as staying in that upper threshold of the leaderboard. But finding that one Victory Royale game did seem to pose a slight issue for them throughout the semifinals process.
I would love to see Muzz and Epic Will actually win a game right here. This team right here has been, I think, the surprise duo of the duos to pop out. When I saw the first concept list, if you will, of potential teams to be, Muzz and Epic Will were not paired up with one another, but now seeing them there definitely raises some excitement. For Chris Minoxie here, Chris missing a lot of critical tags, opportunities missed. Surely are gonna come back to haunt him here as the surge damage is on, which means other teams are looking to get very much active right now.
And you know, we're seeing Surge be a reoccurring problem for so many teams throughout the course of today. Do you think a large credit of that is due to the fact that these are some southern pooling zones, and it just makes it all the more difficult because when those base Surge threshold damage numbers escalate so quickly and so highly, it can be very difficult for even our most seasoned teams to keep up. In fact, one of the only veteran teams, Bugha and Aviv, as far as veteran players are concerned, I should say, they are one of just 2 NA duos that haven't taken a single tick from Surge this season. Yapko and Kwani are the other, but I'm not sure it can necessarily count considering that they have had 3 early eliminations. They've just been out of the lobby so soon that it doesn't necessarily get to play a part for them, but that is an impressive stat metric that Bugha and Aviv are currently holding on to.
I was gonna say it's way more impressive when you have great performances to show for it at the end of that statement. But yeah, surely Bugha and Aviv have done some serious work. They haven't been the talk of the duos just yet, but they show up. Bugha especially shows up on the grand final settings when it starts to matter. No, other players sometimes they just can't deal with the pressure of a grand finals, or they haven't been there enough times, right? That can't be said for Bugha. Bugha's got what it takes. He's been there. He's overcome those hills, overcome those hurdles. Vino and Clix, the same can be said now as well. There was once a time when Clix was in that conversation of he didn't have enough experience, but now he's really grown into his own and he's never been better.
And hey, you were asking about, can Clix and Veno get a Victory Royale in either this lobby or the next? And I'm not gonna lie, in that loadout that we just saw from Veno's, easily the best one from them today. Blaha, quick eliminations onto Mordecai and Rigby. But again, I think Clix and Veno, they had nearly max mats, very strong heals, good shields to depend on. This might be one of their strongest mid to late game transitions if they can just continue to maintain those resources.
Yeah, I was just thinking, you know, like how many times before Veno starts to figure it out, right? Like he had a couple bad calls, possibly some bad hands being dealt, but I'm feeling like we've only seen them get better and better. Last game in particular, they had a little bit of an instance where they could have went for high ground. They could have been in that end game, you know, top 3 for the win. However, it didn't quite connect, so this could be it. But Snacky and Magia have to get active here, and Snacky finds a lot of tags there, but still it wasn't enough. The Surge is active. The threshold's online. Yamzo has some weakened walls here. Can they trace him down? It's looking good. That might be one of their only chances here. The only opportunities. And no one's shooting back. They know this is a solo.
If Snacky and Magia can't connect anytime soon, MDF, they're going to be depleted entirely of their healing resources. The last medkit already being expended here by Snacky. A little bit of Flowberry Fizz remains, but only 50 last I checked, so this is a dire situation now for Snacky and Magia. Baka and Pars, they know, just keep our walls closed off, just keep the cones overhead. Teams are spraying at us because they are more desperate than us for their surge damage. And it seems as though the clock is just working ever so steadily against Snacky and Magia. They have nothing remaining and they won't be able to pull through. Batman Booga gonna seal this even closer.
It almost looked like his own teammate took him down. I was like, wait, what just happened? Take a look at this replay right here. Kanata, Cooper, 1,000 damage above the surge, but they don't care. They want to start claiming names and catching loot. They take down Player Phi and Duo, making it look nice and easy. Muzz and Epic Whale from the deep depths of the storm here make a big rotate right now. And they are just wearing the damage on their sleeves here. Muzz especially has been in the storm a little too long, and they're only 10 damage above. Crash Pad not necessarily working in their favor that go around, but hey, they do make it.
It's all that counts sometimes. As long as you get inside the safety of that edge of zone, Muzz can now take a moment to pause. Might have to utilize one of those 2 Nuka-Colas that he had in his loadout, but better safe than sorry after all. Especially when you consider just how many teams are going to continue to try and go for some desperate measures here. Freeze and Taki, another duo struggling with this storm. Surge damage threshold, 158 below currently. Definitely possible for them to just connect with a couple of nice tags. The question is whether or not they can even isolate a player or a duo in general to find that damage. They're trying to just out-sustain it for the time being, hoping that other players will fall around them and make it so that this damage threshold turns off entirely, but I don't think that's going to be the case here. They at least have this Slurp Cactus to depend on, though, MDF, and that is going to give them a much better lifeline than maybe some of these other teams are dealing with.
Yeah, the biggest mistake they made was actually not look for tags right there. There were so many teams rotating by them while they were trying to scramble back and forth, figuring out how to get their HP situated. They missed so much opportunity, and now they are forced to literally take a box fight. This is about as risky as it gets. So up against Batman Booga and Rapid. Batman Booga, who we've, continued to champion behind, someone who is really in peak form right now, is not the duo you want to fight when you're in a desperate situation. But hey, it's likely the duo that they will have to take on. Rapid and Booga go for the move, though. The hip fires are good so far for Rapid, and they're in position now here. Everyone's landing on top of them, though. Crash pads are just coming out. And it's going to be rinse and repeat here onwards, but Oliver OG wants a piece of the action, trying to get into the fight. Nothing's going to come from it. And every layer, Taco, look at this, every layer. So many players, so many different little skirmishes going down.
Yeah, a Brutal Beachhead is swamped right now inside of the zone. Only a handful of teams able to actually play from the dead side, but Batman Booga and Rapid, they know too. They've got a lot of eyes on them heading into this weekend. I mean, because of their duo Cash Cup performances, so many people have been riding relatively strong on this duo being one of the, peak contenders for this season. But I think here today we are witnessing a prime example of just how different the caliber of gameplay is between those duo Cash Cup lobbies into a semi-final set lobby even, or grands if you consider that far into the future. Mira and Pink though, from the low ground, trying to make some magic happen. Looks like they just got a pretty nice refresh though. That's gonna bode fairly well for them. And Clicks, Veno, again, look at the build count. A successful crash pad rotation as well. Clicks and Veno, they're looking like they're starting to heat up here, MDF.
This is looking way too good to be true right now, as everything is looking to align itself. They're on the front side of the zone right now. They have so much material, crash pads to work with. No one's necessarily positioned for high ground either, right? So it is really just all up in the air right now. Yamzo and Tayson are going to be one of the first to go ahead and touch down up here, but their focus is not up above. It's on who's below them, who's around them right now. So everything is open. But there are so many teams alive right now. 21 teams in the game, and not a single duo was on high. I think Tayson caught a glimpse at the end there, like, wait a second, this could be us. And they start to go for it. Meanwhile, Peterbot taking out one of the bigger threats in the lobby. Pars, Baka, down and out for the count. A team that nearly picked up a victory royale already today, so a serious threat crossed off the board.
I mean, we're looking at another 9 players that need to get dropped. Well, make that 8. But again, this surge damage threshold just proving to be the #1 enemy of so many teams left standing here, as well as I'm starting to think these slurp cactuses are kind of working against some of these teams as well, MDF, because that's why we're seeing so many players still up left standing. They can just buy so much time with that regeneration factor of heals, but Clix and Veno just trying to bide their time here from the mid-ground secondary height position. 8th zone, 9th zone, pretty common standpoint for them to look to try and take height, but down in the low ground, Kanata and Cooper, they're still making sure to keep some knocks and eliminations going strong. One apiece, and Hound is going to join that tally count. Had no idea, never got a chance to even see it coming. Cooper and Kanata just with some impeccable timing. They have so much territory turfed out on that low ground.
Here it is, Clix and Veno finally go for the high ground now. And they couldn't be more situated here to take a victory royale, but first they have to take care of all these notable teams alive. Peterbot, Boyo, Pink, Miro still alive. Inpen's there on the backside, just lurking around, right? This is not going to be free by any means. There's way too many duos alive, and honestly, Clix and Veno came up a little bit early, so they are going to spend a lot of mats. Boyo and Peterbot have the advantage here, as they are not expending as many mats. Look at that. They are still near cap. So is Pink and Miro, so these teams are going to start thinking to themselves now, hey, we have a chance for high ground.
Clix Veno will get shot momentarily. It might have been Miro who actually got the job done, but still not going to deter them from trying in their pursuit to overtake the high ground. Miro, Pink momentarily holding onto it, but again, so much pressure coming now from Clix and Veno on that secondary height, playing directly below where Pink and Miro are currently situated. And again, just one layer below Clix and Veno, who's going to be Peterbot and Pollo, go. Clix, Veno did opt to drop just a little bit lower. Temporary layer switch. They recognize the fact they've got to deal with some of this congestion taking place in the mid-ground before they can be more comfortable in setting up for that secondary height into an overall height take.
That's a huge refresh right now for Veno, so that's going to put them up in some really healthy material counts now. They have a second chance here if they wanted to go for high ground, but Batman Boogan Rapid want to fight for it as well. He jumps up, puts a little pressure down, and then bails out of town. And look at what happens. Miro, Pink out of material now. Too soon, too early, fought too hard, and now they don't have anything to show for it. Clix and Veno swing back around, and Clix is out of mats now as well. And you are just watching the weight of this server lend itself into the inventory here as they are running thin, starting to run dry, if you will, just like the desert that they're playing on right now. Veno and Clix are out of mats, and it's all or nothing. Who's on high ground? Peterbot somehow swings around, and Veno couldn't make it up top, so they will have to fight for it here shortly.
Peterbot was so low. Clix and Veno, though, just couldn't close it out. So unfortunate, but at the same time, that's where Peterbot and Pollo might just prosper. Veno gets knocked in the process of trying to maneuver through that low ground. Peterbot now gonna clean up Clix, so that's gonna be Veno and Clix from height, ultimately ending up being their downfall here because of that play from Peterbot and Pollo off the Crash Pad Jr. And now Kanata
the trade.
And for a moment, I really thought Cooper was gonna take that one away. I am so sorry, MDF. It's like you hold your breath for a second there, but Peterbot, this is all that him and Pollo were waiting for at the end of the day, and they finally find it. Their victory royale in match number 4.
That was an incredible endgame. The high ground retake was almost good from Kanata and Cooper, but the shots trade on both sides, and Peterbot did not hesitate a beat to get the exchanges off. Don't worry, we'll get to watch it back one more time. Look at this right here. Peterbot and Pollo just working through the end game. This started to happen early. This started allowing them to pick up their material counts, and all of a sudden now they were in that running, in the fight for the high ground, and this is when everything traded. But right here, Kanata goes from the outside with a crash pad. It just gets deleted, but not before getting the exchange, and Cooper couldn't even see it coming. Peterbot with a quick, swift justice wins the game there. And Peterbot and Pollo, game 4, are going to the grand finals now, Taco.
And that's looking to be another uncontested team. That Machinist medallion, I think, proving its worth there for Peterbot and Pollo at the very end. But that's what it really all boils down to, MDF, is who's going to be our final team to walk away with that victory round, lobby number 5. We'll find out after this short break.
Sometimes when you wish for something so much, it happens. And this all happening in game number 1 on the day. That's crazy. Peterbot and Pollo getting themselves a victory on game number 1. Finally, it happens. It just takes game number 4. It's cool. But man, if you watched that last game, and that was the one Endgame you watched today, oh my goodness, guys, that Endgame was wild. We had some of the top teams all fighting for height in what felt like basically a grand finals game.
Yeah.
Seriously insane. I mean, all the way from 9/10 zone, where we saw a bunch of those big name teams fighting for the higher ground, fighting for the lower ground, everything. Oh my gosh, then the final moments, Peterbot and Pollo finally closing it out. I honestly thought we were going to see the second place from that duo throughout today, but no, clutched it up.
Yeah, and I mean, it's exactly what Peterbot and Pollo do best while taking height away from players around Zone 10, Zone 11, controlling it until the very final moment. And it was so close, literally coming down to a 1v1. Peterbot, though, getting the final shot. And because they grabbed their victory royale in Game 4, and last Major, they grabbed it in Game 5, does this mean that Peterbot and Pollo are somehow even better than they were in Major 2? I don't know about that, but what I do know is Kanata and Cooper are probably feeling some kind of way right now.
Yeah, I mean, right, the fact that in those final moments, Kanata goes to make a play, right? He goes to crash pad up, and in most situations, I feel like that's a good play, right? You go up, you get the sneak attack, boom. And honestly, he trades, Cooper goes out immediately. But how in the world could he ever expect Peterbot to just basically 180 and be like, hey, man, nice try. I would like to win this game, and then just proceed to walk through like the Victory Royale. Just absolutely insane, man. Just wild.
I mean, you gotta tip your hat there to Kanata, because you can see very quick thinking. They had no mats actually on the lower ground, so a play ultimately did have to be made, or else they were going to inevitably lose the game anyway. But yeah, just unfortunate they went ahead and hit the shot on Pollo, who was already just like so low in HP, and then Peterbot able to clutch it up right there. I mean, who else would you rather have in that situation other than Peterbot?
Honestly, though, Zeke, what you said, that Endgame is what I want to see. We really got a taste of what the grand finals was going to be like. We had Miro and Pink, Clix and Vino, Peterbot and Pollo, Rise. Like, there was just so many of these competitors that we know are going to be the top competitors fighting it out in those final moments of the game. It was everything I want to see and more. And speaking of what I want to see and more, Pink and Miro currently sitting in 5th place. Kanata and Cooper right below them. There's Batman, Boogan Rapid, Clix and Vino even jumping up a few placements to be in our top 10. And that's some good news, because although they haven't been performing necessarily bad, Clix and Vino were kind of, teetering on the edge of having to go into the lower bracket.
Yeah, actually honestly, this Clix kind of went back to like his old roots right here, right? Something that me and Kelly used to talk about all the time, taking higher ground early. But I'm not gonna lie, like this game I was like, oh wow, they have so many mats. I wouldn't be surprised if they go for higher ground early right now. And sure enough, they did during Tensode. And I was like, oh nice, like I like that play. And wow, yeah, I mean, there was just so much pressure from the likes of like Pink and Miro on them that their match just ended up getting depleted so fast, and ultimately ended up not being able to hold the high ground as a result. But still somehow, even though I'm talking about kind of like the negatives of their high ground taken when they went ahead and did it, still clutched up 3rd place. So that's great to see.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want to see out of Clix and Vino. I want to see them in our top 10, if not at least our top 20, because that means that they're going to be going into the upper bracket tomorrow. But something to note, with Peterbot and Pollo now with their Victory Royale, that means that arguably the best POI in the game, Redline Rig, is open. I wonder which duo is going to be moving over there.
Oh, it's a crazy. Who do you think, Kelly? Why don't you? Who would you believe? I don't know. It could be anyone, really.
I mean, yeah, technically it could be anyone. Maybe we'll see 4 duos try and land over there. Bucky already left Grim Gate, so maybe they're going to try and land Redline Rig. It'll be interesting to see.
Guys, we've got a single game left to go. Super quick, final thoughts before we get ready for this final game. What do we need to do? How do we get ourselves the Victory Royale? Go.
Need to find yourself some early slurp cacti, get a lot of Sturge damage in, and take high ground around 11th zone.
Boom. Kelly.
Dead side rotation, don't go for high until 11th zone, and just hope you have enough builds.
Magic number 11. Magic number 11. One final right here. Victory Royale or bust. This is game number 5 of the FNCS.
And you know what? I'm thinking Quanti might make the move there. Blaha mixing the pressure, kind of real, Taco.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been a bit dastardly from Blaha and Mixon down at Research Rock, Yapko and Quanti. Definitely a little bit more backs against the wall effort if they're going to want to try and find something here with a big pop-off performance in Game 5. But they are not the only duo looking for that in our final lobby of the day, MDF.
Yeah, that's right. And looking at the roster, you saw there were so many notable teams here. The Victory Royale it's in the air. We saw so many other teams already punch their ticket to the grand finals, and unfortunately, only of all the bulk of the few that have done it, Dukes, and of course the Team Miro, you know, they're some of the notable ones. So we'll just have to see what's going to happen here. No Peter Bot and Pollo, though, in the lobby is going to change things a lot, right? So Pink and Miro have a chance. Of course, Taste and Yamzo. We might just see that same story unfold here. These big name, the juggernauts of the NA region going head-to-head. So one more time, Taco, let's jump in.
Definitely so excited to see who our final victory royaler of today is going to be. But a small discussion we were kind of having during that little analyst deck summit taking place, MDF, I actually do feel like this would be Clix and Veno's prime opportunity to try and walk away with a win here, because if you really dial it back to the last couple of lobbies, one of the notable features that I couldn't help but take note of is the fact that they were encountering Peterbot and Pollo in that mid game, usually around 4th, 5th, 6th zone, and that made a lot of problems. At least it just kind of put their gameplay a little bit more to a halt. Last lobby, we didn't see them struggle in that mid game versus them, and it's more so just the fact that they're kind of just caught at a standstill. And so it just puts like a little bit of a damper into their mid to late game strategy. And I think here now, with Peterbot and Pollo out of the lobby, they might not necessarily have to worry about that.
Yeah, Peterbot and Pollo, of course, are a huge threat to any team. And I was wrong. Quanti's still here, landing, fighting against Mixon and Blaha. I mean, it makes sense, right? You want to put up the, you know, the threat, if you will, your reputation on the line. Listen, I'm not going to back down. I'm going to fight for it. And Quanti and Javco are really fighting for it, because they kind of have to win this drop, make top 25. If they don't make an endgame, I mean, that's wraps. So if there was a team that could have did it, I mean, I would have thought maybe they would have been the ones, but we'll just have to see.
And you know what they say, never back down, never what?
Never give up. Right?
That is
I love
Quanti
that
and
one.
Yapko, man. they are definitely teeing it up, considering that it has certainly not been a favorable Research Rock day for them today. But, you know, everybody can have a little bit of an off day, but also I think it more so hones into the fact that Blaha and Mixon, they have clearly done a lot of research into Research Rock, no pun intended, and we are certainly seeing them shape up much better than the last time we saw this kind of exchange take place.
You know, now that I think about it, I don't think a caster has ever said Nick A30's line on air. I expect that maybe from Zeke. But Taco just pulled it fast.
There's no way on the first one, man. I mean, technically, you were the alley-ooper.
That is true. That is true. Well, here we have it, Game 5. More replays, more action. Rapid and Batman Booga. Fights going down here at the Grim Gate. And a quick cleanup and a finish here. Listen, Batman Booga, Rapid are in form. They're in tip-top shape. We're seeing it game after game. Discussions are buzzing all around that duo online, and for good reason. The community understands they are a very, very good team in charge of the Grim Gate. Miro and Pink playing the outskirts right now. You saw them. They're gliding past the Batman and Boogas. They want nothing to do with that team in the early game, and it's playing off well for them because they have been one of the few up at the top. And honestly, Taco, I don't think we've seen Miro and Pink struggling for Surge, right?
No, nowhere near as much as some other teams that have been dealing with it so far today, but Convict just trapped like a rat in a cage there. Rapid gonna waste no time with the cleanup crew. And now Grim Gate confidently secured as well by Batman Booga and Rapid in this final lobby here today. And again, everybody just looking to finish strong. G-Money, Reciprocal, they're gonna find elimination onto Noisy. Now, it's all down to whether or not they can find Tony, the other half of this duo. And just below their current edits, Reciprocal and G-Money, they understand the kind of advantage that they're working with currently. But Tony, he's just gonna full send it. Gets a big chag onto Reciprocal, and that's gonna be his green light to go, but cut short by the backup. 2 is just better than 1 at the end of the day.
Yeah, I respect it. Team also has a little extra something to say there. But hey, look, it drops them up into the 2 eliminations kind of territory. Rebels Roost completely clear now. And the early, I guess, early revealed the zone right there. It's pulled very far west. That's going to change the way this game's going to play out. We've already seen what happens when the zone's too south, right? With the storm surge and stuff like that. And hold up. Vino and Clix have had this incredible advantage last game, but it seems like that it's all starting to unfold here. Vino burning through the midnight oil here. Paco and Tekka are hot on his heels here. Clix has to come into the rescue. Vino's base down in metal. Shots come from up above. Paco backs off. And luckily he finds the tag, because if he hadn't, this might not have gone their way at all. And look, attention on the map from the outskirts. There's another duo looking inwards, trying to figure out if whether or not they could put their perspective in on this. And it might be Taco that gets, Paco that gets targeted here. Oh my gosh, T's and P's and Taco, and I'm just mixing names, but
Yeah, I'm right here, man, don't worry.
Going on right now.
But all things considered, though, I think that is a prime example of just how dangerous these set lobbies can be, because unfortunately part of the risk involved with how Clix and Veno like to play their early game strat is very split apart. So it was only a matter of time before a team like Vorteca and Paco tried to take full advantage of that. Veno thankfully had the coverage from Clix to get him out of that sticky situation, but at the same time, that's going to be one of those moments where their early game strategy is just kind of put on a slight hold. And whether or not that comes back to haunt them, we'll have to wait and see. Definitely so many teams, though, kind of just lurking around, trying to see where they can maybe sneak away with an elimination or two. And Scented and Hound are no different. In fact, this team has really struggled to find their drop identity so far today. MDF, we have seen them now at, I believe, at least, at a minimum, 3 different drops. And so it's evident that the strategy here is just getting a little bit of experience as a duo together, since they are one of our newly formed duos in upper bracket here today, but also just trying to figure out where they feel best playing that early game.
Yeah, they still have a shot too. Any team in the kind of 30-40 range just needs a big end game, and they'll be up in that top 25. But look at Cam just working Oliver OG right there when it matters too. This is a 1v2, right? Aminish is already down. Oliver OG is just going ape, trying to jump in the box here, getting a little crazy. And Cam puts up an excellent defense. Now he's trying to break his way through the walls here. Does have to be careful though, not to overdo it this time around. And there it is. He starts to slow things down, playing slow and steady into the box, so these are not his walls. And Cam is really putting it all on the line here. And I think, you know what? This level of offense here is really, really playing well for him in there. They're going to get the reset. He's going to get the pickup. Both sides are going to be able to jump back into this.
That's so huge, though. Craze putting up some excellent defensive measures to ensure you just got to make Cam that much more uncomfortable. Just that little teeny bit of uncomfortable. And am I really going to just win this outright? Because you want to force that trade of revives. And Craze especially, one of the newer players, I think, to this tier of the competitive scene. He's really trying to develop a name for himself, and moments like that are where it can really all begin.
Lock in bars right now. Playing the low ground. Excellent tag there when the wall breaks, getting a trade onto Yamzo. However, hard to play out of this position here when you have another duo here just to the west. It's Noah, it's Liam. Desperate here, trying to find anything. Baka sees him jump down, and they're just trying to create a stronghold right now. Bucky and Okus are there in the background. Yamzo and Tayson leave this mess as well, and Yamzo's going way into the storm right now. He wants to likely play for the reboot here to get Tayson back in the game.
But this is all valuable time lost that could have potentially been spent looking for Surge. Instead, Yamzo, Tayson, they're going to not only have to work their way back towards the thick of the action because they're playing from inside of the storm, but at the very least, they do have those slow cactuses to depend on. Baka and Pars, though, here's where it all really started to go wrong for Tayson and Yamzo. Excellent patience, the stealth play just too powerful at times, and Tayson had no chance to ever see it coming, especially from underneath. You don't expect your floor to just disappear like that.
2 eliminations for Rapid and Batman Booga. So far, so good. Material count should be up and running here before they leave the Grim Gate. There's a couple teams actually waiting on the outskirts for some late rotates from players like Rapid and Batman Booga there. Jumping to the other side, we have Kanata and Cooper. And this is far south. We haven't really seen too much of Kanata and Cooper's early game storm strategy. Whatever it is, it has been spectacular because they've found themselves consistently very, very above the surge with a lot of damage, but not with a lot of elimination. So clearly it's off the backs of just effective rotates and finding players as they go. But I wonder, with this zone pulling so far north, will it put stress on their damage? They haven't had stress all day today. We'll have to see. Pink and Mirror looking in on Rapid and Batman Booga. So he was one of the players on the outskirts, and he's actually a solo.
And you know, Pink and Mira have actually, they have had very impressive performances because they're not a team that has the luxury of being able to depend on those slurp cactuses for their early surge strategy. Coming out of Charon's Crossing, one of those outskirt positions on the map towards the west side, especially that northwest side, it is not an easy feat by any means. And so for them to still be so consistent and staying within the top 10 threshold on the leaderboard in general today, it is just, I think, a testament to how seasoned they are and how well they actually understand how to play through those kinds of positions on the map and turn them into their advantage.
Couldn't agree more. It's the little things that make the differences. Talking about the little things, the Alonzo and Tayson, the pickup, the save. But look at this, my oh my. Shadow and Virgo sitting here. Who knows why or where they were coming from, but they are back here in the storm, as are so many other teams. But that's to be expected once you start getting a little bit closer here. Meanwhile, fight breaking off on the edge. What was that?
Imagine he hit the ramp edge off the flaming boost too. He almost clipped it.
Shadow taking shots while he was in the storm, by the way. Not sure if that was the wisest move given their HP counts, but app knowledge is there. They get to the vendor.
Just trying to claim this space for themselves. It's pre-existing builds, letting them know there's definitely some company up ahead. And Virgo, the moment that he pops up from his ramp, just instantly cracked. Only 50 white HP remains, and he is scrambling, but Curly's not gonna let this one go. A massive knock, now translating into the elimination here. Shadow left to run back into the storm, and granted, we know that it's that early storm tick damage. The problem is that he is getting chased down potentially by Curly and Raze. At the very least, he will be held by one of these two duos. He's kind of just hoping that Curly and Raze get distracted enough with the other team that, yeah, instead rotate out. So that is going to buy Shadow some time, but I'm not sure that it's time that'll really benefit him at this point because it is a tough situation to come back from.
Well, you know, Shadow kind of asked for it, right? He shot at this team first. He kind of gathered their attention before they got into the zone and healed up, and now it's just all coming full circle here. So for a team like Curly and Raze, they put up a great fight, to say the least. Jumping on over to the Rift Island. We haven't tuned in with too many teams that have positioned themselves up here. How are things looking? It's Batman Booga, it's Rapid. They seem to be catching big upgrades here. Material counts not necessarily the best, but the loadout, very strong indeed.
And you know, everybody was kind of focusing on Redline Rig being left vacant since Peterbot and Pollo got their Victory Royale in Game 4, but Peterbot and Pollo were also consistently making plays for Rift Island. We saw, I think, at least 2 matches where Peterbot had that Mythic hand cannon in his loadout. And so that's also just another small location that Batman Booga Rapid clearly netting a pretty massive benefit off of having it completely uncontested.
Look at this, Pink. When we last tuned in, he didn't have Miro, so he got the save, he got the pickup. I wasn't even sure if he had the reboot card, but it does seem like things are starting to align for them. Miro's still very, very far in the storm right now. Pink sitting on 3 med kits. There's a lot to continue to play out for that team right now. They're going to be one of the few that are going to be very much below the surge. Now, that is if it even turns on, because the lobby is continuing to get active right now. Chubbs and Skittles with nothing to lose right here. If they want top 25, they're going to have to fight for it, and that is exactly what they're trying to do. And this is way on the outside. This is way on the side of the map. They give it up.
Blaha and Mixon are here as well, way north over by Classy Courts. And when you consider that they start super southeast at Research Rock, and we also saw Yapko and Quantum caught a glimpse of them earlier on. And we were watching a separate box fight take place, so both of these teams not managing to eliminate the other, but now playing from very different positions. It's interesting to see how that one actually played out at the end of the day, because you'd almost expect that there would have been an elimination from either side onto the each duo.
Yeah, they should have finished that. Blaha and Mixon actually needed those eliminations as they're 42 below the damage, so they didn't get enough. They weren't active enough. Little glimpse of Epic Whale Muzz there in the center of the duos, starting to land on top of them. Edgy and Ackerman, who we saw make an endgame, now jumping in, taking quick care of Paco and Orteca there. Now I find myself almost mixing Paco and Tekka's name to say Taco again. It's so silly. I gotta get that out of my head. I'm just gonna say Orteca.
Might be one of the easier ways to go about it. But
I just gave myself a random tongue twister. Never had it fully developed on broadcast. There it is.
first time for everything. Happens to the best of us, man. Don't worry. Don't sweat it.
Well, let's jump in here. Mixon, see, that surge is on. They are below. They come
First
out
time
the
we've really
zone.
seen them deal with it.
Yeah, this is like early qualifier 1. They had problems with surge. This is the first time we're seeing it since then, and you can see whenever they are having that problem, they don't do very well under the pressure of the storm surge.
To be fair, I think a lot of teams definitely tend to struggle because it just becomes so obvious whenever a team is struggling with those storm surge ticks, because the moment you start barreling into other player builds, they can tell, okay, storm surge is active. These guys probably need it more than us. And so we're just gonna hold our edits. We're just gonna hold our walls. That's it. We don't have to take unnecessary peeks, or they wait until they hear that shield crack cue, because they won't be able to see when those storm surge ticks are active onto players, but you can definitely hear when somebody's shields get broken. And that might be part of the reason why we saw Blaha and Mixon really struggling there, on top of the fact that that early game didn't pan out 100% in their favor with finding the consistent eliminations that they have been against Yapko and Quanti.
Take a look at Yamzo and Taysom with a big rotate right here. I'm actually surprised they even took to the sky for that long, watching the bases being built all around them, but seems like the comms were good. They make their way all the way on in. They have time to bounce back. Start getting situated here. Who's the teams on high ground? So it's Freeze on the left side, Booga and Aviv on the right, and they're sitting right on top of Chubbs and company. Meanwhile, Pink loses Miro once again here, and this is all up to Pink. Pink definitely having the point lead right now for the teams remaining, but that's not enough to go to grand finals. Only a win can do that, and 165 below. You're seeing what happens when you're worrying about saving your team and trying to just, you know, get footing in the game, get to the zone. You just don't have time to fight, and it's showing itself now, and it's unfortunate because Pink is probably over.
He's doing his best, but unfortunately, it's just not going to be enough. Flix and Pilot. This is the first time that we are seeing them since our initial lobby, and it's also been an incredibly tough time, considering that they are a team first to drop towards that northern side of the map and all these southern pulling zones. The odds have definitely been stacked against them, but it's nice to see them here in this mid to late game action. And that refresh onto Pink might be what they needed. They've had some difficulties with Storm Surge, understandably so, and now they're just trying to see if they can maybe have that strong pop-off performance to, at the very least, net them a position in that top end of the leaderboard for day 2 of Uppers.
What a crazy zone coming this far north. Not a team up there. Everyone's starting to make the rotates here. And you can see how mountainous it is. Hills everywhere. You just gotta hope you pick the right side and the right one. Otherwise, it's gonna be tough bidding if you don't have the crash pads to work with or something. Meanwhile, Vino and Clix on the outskirts right now. Not in the greatest position, not as strong as we saw them in the previous game. However, they have managed to get their footing kind of back in after that early game. It wasn't looking too good for Vino for a second there, but things might come back around for them.
Yeah, after that pressure that Vorteca and Paco applied to them by Snooty Steps, almost wonder if Veno and Clix were actually able to secure Forecast Tower. Keep in mind, that is something that they do have the potential to snag up. And yeah, this confidence, that shot from Veno, a massive tag. And that's gonna be more than enough. They're still trying to work their way, breaking down some of these old walls. They don't know who's on the other side, but they can gauge. It's likely a solo or a team that's not left in a very solid position. But no, it's the solo that they're after. It's Cooper. Don't see Kanata in sight, so you have to expect that this is all Cooper trying to come out with a big solo performance here. But Veno, Clix, pausing for a moment. They might know something everybody else don't, or doesn't.
Yeah, no, if you think about it, they have the Storm knowledge of where it's going, because why would they target that team so heavily? Because they know we have to rotate that way. So they start exhausting the material on that duo, and it works out so good for them. It pushes them off the layer. Now they have all that space to work with. Sure, they didn't get the elims or the refresh, but they got exactly what they wanted, and that was the position taken from that team and the pressure of them sitting on top of them, way off of them. So that's going to work out well for Bugha and Aviv. I mean, they're just playing by instinct right now, and it's looking pretty well, avoiding the ultimate low, but kind of sitting above other teams right there. Meanwhile, on high ground, Noxy and Crisp not even taking risks, peeking outwards, kind of sitting in their base, coned up, waiting for things to start maneuvering itself, and it's going to bounce right back. This is going to be perfect for a team like Noxy and Crisp right here. If they want to play for high ground, the time to fight for it is now. Otherwise, Baka and Pars might be one of the first ones.
I mean, this is what, like, our first truly northern pulling zone here today, so it's no surprise that we're seeing a lot of these north-based drop teams starting to pick up a little bit of momentum here. Baka and Pars, though, currently holding the high ground. We see Curly and Raze insta-rotating towards that front side. Cooper stuck in a slightly isolated position here on the low ground. Crash pad gonna help catapult him over towards that front side of zone, but he sees a metal box. Gonna pop that nitro splash just in case. He's got to get out quick, and sure enough, Pars and Baka still continuing to hold it down strong on the high ground, but material count maybe not where it needs to be to maintain this.
This is an early high ground take as well. Zone 9 is so early in the game. You have a long way to go, and they're just burning right through it, so expect other teams to start looking up. Vino and Click still alive here. Still playing very smart, not trying to do what they did before, which was an early position for height, or maybe one of the first, I should say, instead. Not necessarily early. I think the timing was good, but there were just way too many strong teams, so I like that they're putting more pressure on the surrounding duos, and as long as they keep that distance, it should be looking good for them, but they have big problems in this lobby. You have a healthy Bugha and Aviv that are cooking right now, working their way through some strong positioning here. Pressure starting to come in. Npen and Duo still alive here. Noxy and Chris give up their position. They start to work their way down a little bit here. Baka and Pars still have the high ground.
Baka and Pars, though, is going to be the first one to move forward between the two of them, and now just trying to apply some suppressive pressure on to that secondary height layer. The mid ground wants to ensure that nobody gets an opportunity to try and challenge with any of those crash pads. And also keep in mind, Baka Pars landing at the ship-it station, they do have opportunity for a forecast tower as well. So part of the reason why they may have expended so many of their art materials early on could be because they also know that slight advantage, but how well will it really pan out for them as Noxie Crisp gobbled up in the low ground. Cooper, impressively enough, still holding on in this low ground position as a solo.
Don't forget, the win is all that matters right now. If you win this game, you are going straight to grand finals. Vino starting to wake his way up to the high ground here, trying to see if there is some light at the end of the tunnel. Will they play for height is the question. They surely are, trying to position themselves. Meanwhile, Cooper holding it down in the low ground right now, getting absolutely active here and continuing to make damage come to life here, but Baka's gonna find Vino. Clix is gonna take high ground before trading off, and it's damage done on both sides. We're looking at all solos actually in the game, minus Booga and Aviv. If Cooper doesn't attack Booga, then this might just be wraps for Clix in the high ground, right? All the solos unfortunately have to somehow dismantle what's left of Booga and Aviv, or they will win this game.
With the pullback from the zone, Clix getting now to run over those pre-existing height builds, that might create enough space. Booga and Aviv, they've got crash pads that they can utilize. A Minish takes a massive tag. Booga credited with that one. It all comes down to whether or not they can find Cooper, but it's all questionable whether Aviv even has medkits to play this one out. We saw Clix didn't have any white health, and Clix doing his best to try and maintain the high ground, managed to clip Cooper, but unfortunately enough, the moment that he breaks down into the low ground layer, it's just Booga and Aviv waiting to strike, and this duo will finally find their victory royale in lobby number 5.
Yeah, Clix didn't waste any time. He was like, you know what, Cooper, if you're not going to jump in, I'm going to. And he tries to find an opportunity there onto Booga and Aviv. But just like that, Booga and Aviv win that game, and they go straight to grand finals. You cannot count this team out. Booga and Aviv always pull through. Take a look at the highlights here, of course. Marching their way to the tune of their own beat, playing absolutely well. Cooper, instead of fighting the low ground team, challenges for height, makes it that much more difficult. And in the end, the big Aviv and Booga win the game there. Congratulations to them. They're going straight to the grand finals. No more uppers or lower brackets in sight for them. And instead, they get to celebrate today. And we'll see them next week, Taco.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's surprised to see Booga and Aviv secure their place in the grand finals, but I'm sure that Zeke, Vivid, and Kelly have a lot to say as far as everything that took place here today. So that's going to do it from us, MDF and the Best Taco. Had an excellent time watching all 5 of these matches here today, but again, Analyst Desk, what you guys got for us?
Well. Booga and Aviv in game number 5 get themselves the victory royale. It happens once again. Booga! It's not, I don't do it as well, but man, I feel like this was just as crazy as the game we got like not that long ago, right? We had all these duos kind of fighting for height. This coming down to just solo riders having to fight off Booga and Aviv in this situation. For Cooper and like Clix, if they had just decided we're gonna fight the duo instead, maybe this goes another way. But these guys are in the driver's seat, right? They just had to hold on. Eventually, you have to come to us. You don't have a choice. You've got nothing left in the tank, and we're just waiting for you to try and break through our walls. We've got the edits ready, and now we've got our spot in the grand finals.
What's awesome is, we just had that duo cash cup yesterday, right? That set love, and we were kind of looking towards who was winning games. Of course, Peterbot and Pollo won 4 of them, but the other 2 games, one was won by Dukes and Sphinx, who, of course, we saw get a victory route earlier, and then Booga and Aviv won that other game in the duo cash cup. So every single team that won a game in the cash cup also won a game here today in upper bracket, which I think is just so cool.
And I mean, I could tell that Bugha and Aviv were on something else in that game. It was around zone 8, zone 9 that we just saw this super clean rotate from Bugha and Aviv, skirting around the edge of zone and finding themselves to be able in the front of everyone else, able to look back, get great tags. And they're just such a well-rounded duo. For whatever reason, people just keep discrediting them, even though Bugha is one of the most decorated players. And like you said, they already grabbed the Victory Royale from the Cash Cup yesterday, although they did get a little bit of help with Vino because they won over Peterbot and Pollo. But Bugha and Aviv are clearly here to stay. I mean, they broke up, got back together. Clearly something worked out with their duo synergy because it's back in full force now, and I am so excited to watch them in the grand finals.
Cannot wait, but we're not done, right? We still have tomorrow, we still have Sunday as well to fill out those spots going to the grand finals. Let's take a look at the standings. How did this kind of all unfold? And just as a reminder, who made it through the Victory Royales? Game number 1 went to Sphinx and Dukes. Game number 2 to Bolts and Bryce. Game 3 was Agers and Rise. 4 was Peterbot and Pollo, and you just watched Bugha and Aviv get the last one on the day. Now remember, we're looking to stay basically in the top 25. It is basically the top 20, so to speak. Just ignore the top 5. We'll just put it that way. And they will look to stay in the upper bracket, which means now we will have new players from the lower bracket moving on up. And Kelly, you kind of pointed out something to me. You were excited to kind of start looking into the results of the lower bracket.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot going on in the lower bracket, and we had some big names there as well. Of course, everyone is going to be looking to Mr. Savage and Mongrel, who grabbed, for their first 3 games, 3 Victory Royales, and which is a great way to start off your lower bracket run. Of course, Acorn and Cold were getting just stupid amounts of eliminations, which is something that you would expect of that echelon of a team, especially in open lobbies, especially when arguably 50 of the best duos are in a completely different lobby. So that's something that we could expect out of that duo.
Yeah, I'm like side-eyeing the lower bracket leaderboard right now, and Acorn and Cold have quite a lead over the rest of the lobby. But then, Mongrel and Savage also doing quite well with those 3 Victory Royales. And if, listen, the trend follows, right? Hey, listen, we had all the teams that won a game yesterday in the Duo Cash Cup Finals, while these teams winning games in this lower bracket games today, like Mongrel and Mr. Savage. Maybe tomorrow is when they'll get their Victory Royale and qualify for Grands.
I'm also really excited to watch the duos that didn't make it through, didn't get their Victory Royale today, because how Cooper stayed alive for as long as he did when he was below Storm at Zone 9. And then, of course, we have Vino and Clicks. Everyone thought that they were going to get that win in the final game, and they were so close so many times. But tomorrow is a new day. It is 5 more opportunities for our duos to be able to get Victory Royales, but also they're going to have some new duos come and they have to face, and that's going to shake things up a lot.
That's kind of going to be the big question mark on our mind, right? It's like, how do we adapt? And really quickly before we say goodbye, what do you guys think? Remember, this top 25, they're going, okay, we've played matches and we've kind of started to download information of the lobby, right? And then you just go, just kidding. Now you've got 25 new duos coming in. Maybe you went from uncontested to full con by like 3 different duos. Everything changes for this top 25. So how do they kind of bring that into tomorrow?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's really, really hard. You gotta think about it. It's less than 24 hours before, that second day kind of starts. And like you mentioned, the whole lobby is gonna be completely different. Everyone's gotta figure out where they're landing, what strategies actually worked for Victory Royale. So a lot of work to be done and not a lot of time to go ahead and actually do it. But we'll have to see who is going to be the most prepared tomorrow.
And I definitely think with that preparation, a lot of our duos that are making it from upper bracket 1 to upper bracket day 2 are going to be looking to the 30 duos that qualified through. See how they performed in the lower bracket, see where they're landing, and base their strategies off of that. But like Vivid just said, there's not a lot of time to be able to do that. So hopefully they can get a little bit of preparation and VOD reviewing in now.
That's right. And that's what we are also going to have to do, right? Because we have to figure out what tomorrow looks like. What is changing? We'll have that for you tomorrow. We are back at a different time, a more usual time, right? 5 p.m. Eastern. And hey, look, if you like what this was, don't forget, EU's like right before us. If you want to watch more action, more names, and kind of all of these storylines being in one place, which is the Global Championships, please check out EU. From ourselves, Kelly, Link, and of course, Vivid, we thank you guys so much. As always, until tomorrow, we love you. Keep yourself safe out there, rather. And we'll see you on that battle bus.
Beep, beep.
Beep, beep.